Chapter 584. Typically, people with mysophobia wouldn't be willing to touch dirty things, Jiang Yin said. Zhou was enlightened. You mean to say that we have to dirty our bodies? Then, Bai Zhe won't be willing to touch us. Why didn't you say so earlier? It's not like it's difficult. I can make preparations in advance and get some pot ashes or something when I come. That's not the case. No matter how dirty we are, it makes no difference to Bai Zhe. This is because it doesn't need to touch us at all. All it needs to do is say a word to finish us off. If we are too dirty, it might even incur its annoyance. It might only chase us down, but seeing how dirty we are, it might throw us off the cliff and kill us, Jiang Yin said with a shake of his head. Then what do you mean? Zhou really couldn't figure out what Jiang Yin meant. I mean, perhaps we can have some way to make Bai Zhe unwilling to even look at us or even say a word to us, Jiang Yin said. How is that possible? No matter how dirty we are, it's impossible to make it unwilling to look at us, right? Even if it doesn't want to look at us and closes its eyes, it only needs to say a word to make us scram down the mountain. No matter how Zhou thought about it, it was impossible. Of course it's possible. As long as you do as I say, you can definitely do it, Jiang Yin said confidently. How do I do it? Zhou asked doubtfully. You'll know when you see this. A purple light flickered between Jiang Yin's eyebrows. His body, which was originally immobile like Zhou Wen's, actually moved. Then, he threw a book in front of Zhou Wen. This only took an instant. After doing all of this, the purple light between Jiang Yin's eyebrows vanished, and his body returned to its frozen state. Take a good look at the contents of that comic book, and you will know what to do, Jiang Yin said. Bai Zhe clearly had absolute confidence in itself. Although it had heard Zhou Wen and Jiang Yin's conversation and could understand what they were saying, it didn't mind at all. It looked at them disdainfully as though they were two idiots. From its point of view, no matter what Zhou Wen and Jiang Yin did, it only needed to say a word to finish off these two idiots. Zhou Wen couldn't move his body, but thankfully, he could still move his mouth. He blew at the comic book on the ground and used the airflow to affect the pages of the comic book. This was an episode of a comic book. There was no beginning or end. Zhou didn't understand what it meant at first, but after reading it for a while, his expression gradually turned odd. The content of the comic book looked very normal. There didn't seem to be anything special. However, it didn't seem to be. Bai Zhe lay there and secretly opened one of its eyes to take a peek. Seeing that there was nothing wrong with the drawing, it closed its eyes and continued to rest leisurely. Are you sure this will work? Zhou asked Jiang Yin with a strange expression after reading it. Jiang Yin said with certainty, definitely. Will Bai Zhe kill us if we do this? Zhou asked again. Bai Yin said. 2. When that to the Bai. Jiang Yin to 1. Wait, what do you mean by I've tainted its place? Shouldn't it be us? Zhou felt that something was amiss. I'll 1. Only you can complete this matter. I can't, Jiang Yin said sincerely. We're all men. Why can't I do it? Zhou immediately retorted. He didn't believe Jiang Yin's nonsense. Actually, I'm also a germaphobe. It's no better than Bai Zhe's. That's why I need your help. Otherwise, I could have done it myself. I wouldn't have brought you here. Jiang Yin continued sincerely. It's precisely because I'm also a germaphobe that I know this method will definitely succeed. Like hell, I believe you. If you want to do it, we'll do it together. If you want me to do it myself, there's no way, Zhou said through gritted teeth. Sorry, L1. I'll make it up to you in the future. As Jiang Yin spoke, the purple dot of light between his eyebrows lit up again, allowing him to temporarily escape Bai Zhe's immobilizing power. In the next second, Jiang Yin flicked his hand and produced a piece of paper that landed right on top of Zhou Wen's head. After doing all of this, the purple light between Jiang Yin's eyebrows dimmed again as he was immobilized once again. What are you doing? What's that on my head? Zhou Wen looked up from the corner of his eyes, but he couldn't see anything above his head. This is an epic companion beast. Its name is Zenith Paper Figurine. As long as it lands on your head, it can control your body. Then, your body will do whatever it does. Don't worry. The Zenith Paper Figurine's control of your body is similar to that of a marionette. Your body is still immobilized, but it doesn't affect your actions. As Jiang Yin explained, the zenith paper figurine had already stood up. It was a paper figurine cut out of yellow paper. It didn't have a nose or eyes. It was just a human-shaped paper cutout. However, when it stood above Zhou Wen's head, Zhou Wen's originally immobile body actually moved like a puppet. However, it looked extremely stiff. Don't worry, I've already gotten someone to teach it all the actions. It will do it in one go at the fastest speed possible. Remember to say your lines. Jiang Yin closed his eyes. He didn't even want to look, nor did he want to imagine the scene. No, no. Zhou Wen widened his eyes as he looked down. He watched helplessly as one of his hands uncontrollably tugged at his belt like a bolt of lightning. I've wronged you. I'll make it up to you in the future. Jiang Yin closed his eyes with a guilty expression. However, Jiang Yin's expression suddenly changed. He opened his eyes and glanced sideways, but he didn't see Zhou Wen. The purple light between Jiang Yin's eyebrows immediately erupted again, but unfortunately, it was too late. Zhou Wen appeared behind him with a devilish smile. He grabbed the zenith paper figurine with one hand and kept struggling in his hand, but it couldn't escape his grasp. As for Zhou Wen's other hand, he had already grabbed Jiang Yan's pants and pulled them down. Then he kicked Jiang Yan's buttocks. Jiang Yan's pupils constricted as he rolled towards Bai Zai with a look of despair. Ha! Brother Bai Zai, take a closer look at the places that guy has rolled past. Those places have been contaminated by his filthy germs. When the wind blows, the filthy germs will constantly spread. Soon, the entire mountaintop will be covered in filthy germs. You must not let him roll down the mountain. Wherever he rolls past will be contaminated by the filthy germs. Zhou Wen was speaking smugly when he suddenly saw a purple whip wrap around his leg without him realizing it. Jiang Yin, who was rolling towards Bai Zai, gritted his teeth and pulled. Zhou Wen's pants tore as his body fell to the ground and rolled towards Bai Zai. Chapter 585. What were people with severe mysophobia most afraid of? Of course, it was not the dirty things that could be seen. The dirty things that could be seen could be removed. For patients with severe mysophobia, as long as it could be removed, it was not a problem. They could spend a lot of time to remove the dirty things. What they really couldn't tolerate was the psychological cues. It was just like when a patient with mysophobia went to wash his hands after urinating and used his hand to turn on the faucet. He would feel that the faucet was tainted with egg-shaped bacteria. After washing his hands would be clean, but when he turned off the faucet, he would be tainted with the egg-shaped bacteria on the faucet. This would repeat over and over again, making it impossible for him to be completely clean. Unless it was a faucet that automatically sensed water, a person with severe mysophobia would struggle in front of the sink for a long time. Now, two dirty egg-shaped bacteria sources were rapidly rolling on the mountaintop. Many places they rolled past were tainted with the dirty egg-shaped bacteria. If Bai Zai said the word scram, now, the two huge sources of infection would roll all the way down the mountain, infecting the entire mountain. If Zhou Wen hadn't said anything, Bai Zai might not have thought of that much. However, after Zhou Wen's words, Bai Zai felt that it wasn't appropriate to deal with these two dirty fellows. It wanted to freeze the two of them, but for some reason, the fixed formula was useless against them. Kill them? Bai Zai felt that it would contaminate the entire mountaintop. Furthermore, it wasn't a creature that would easily kill. Now, Bai Zai didn't even want to look at the two dirty sources of infection. It was as if it would be infected by the dirty egg-shaped bacteria as long as it looked at them. Retreat. Slowly retreat. An existence as powerful as Bai Zai was actually retreating. I'm about to succeed. Zhou Wen was delighted when he saw that he and Jiang Yin were about to roll to the side of the crooked tree. Although this move was a little despicable and shameless, it was fine as long as it could achieve its goal. There was no one else here, so there was no need to worry if they couldn't see their sorry state. The only hateful thing was that Jiang Yin could clearly use this method himself, but he had dragged him over. It took a long time to describe, but in fact, from the moment Zhou Wen kicked Jiang Yin out to the moment the two of them slammed into the crooked tree, it only took an instant. The frightened Baize didn't react in such a short period of time. It had already retreated to the top of the mountain with a look of horror and disgust, as though the entire mountaintop had been contaminated by them. When he slammed into the tree, Zhou had already summoned the jade crystal spirit armor and put it on. At the same time, he shouted at Jiang Yin, "Senior brother Jiang, don't wear any clothes. Otherwise, Baize will definitely charge back when he sees you wearing clothes. You won't have the chance to contract a guardian. Don't fail at the last moment." Jiang Yin obviously wasn't willing to listen to him. He was even faster than Zhou Wen. He had already summoned his armor and put it on. His first reaction wasn't to pounce at the azure silk cocoon, but to slap away the dirt on his body. This fellow really has severe misophobia. When Zhou Wen saw Jiang Yan's actions, he immediately rushed over and kicked him away, sending him flying towards the azure silk cocoon. "Senior brother, I'll lend you a leg." Zhou Wen shouted at Jiang Yin, who had flown out. Jiang Yin slammed into the azure silk cocoon like a cannonball. He resisted the extreme discomfort in his heart and the urge to clean his body. He bit the tip of his tongue and spat a mouthful of blood onto the cocoon. Zhou Wen watched as Jiang Yan's blood slowly seeped into the azure silk cocoon. This was the first time he had seen someone contract a guardian. He didn't know if Jiang Yan's method would succeed. Baize stood above the sea of clouds and saw that Jiang Yan's blood had already fused into the azure silk cocoon. The expression on his face was abnormally complicated. He didn't move as he stood above the sea of clouds and looked at the azure silk cocoon. The azure silk cocoon absorbed Jiang Yan's blood. It wasn't much blood, but it quickly dyed the huge azure silk cocoon red. As the azure silk cocoon was completely dyed red, cracks began to appear on it. Fragments formed from coiled cocoon threads fell from it. From the spot where it fell, a cyan light seeped out. It looked extremely pure. As the azure silk cocoon constantly shattered, Zhou Wen saw a curled-up body through the cracks. However, it was different from what Zhou Wen had imagined. It was a cyan-clothed fairy with fluttering clothes. She didn't have any characteristics of Baize. Zhou Wen originally imagined that the creatures inside the cocoon were typically related to the dimensional creatures that protected him. For example, the one in Ant City had some characteristics of the ant race. There was also John's six-winged seraphim. According to him, the mythical creature guarding the cathedral was an angel. However, he had used a trick to bypass the angel and form a contract with the six-winged seraphim. He hadn't really fought the angel. In that situation, John hadn't truly obtained the six-winged seraphim's recognition. Now, Jiang Yin had also used a trick. Zhou Wen was worried that he wouldn't be able to obtain the guardian's true recognition. It would be terrifying if he had to pay a price to contract it. Don't tell me this guardian is also from the eunuch society? An indescribable scene flashed through Zhou Wen's mind as he looked at Jiang Yin with an odd expression. Just as Zhou Wen was pondering over it, the azure silk cocoon had completely shattered. Azure vines appeared out of thin air and danced around the cyan fairy inside. When the azure vines transformed into beams of light that resembled true dragons that rose into the sky, they shattered and fell, turning into petals that filled the sky. The cyan-clothed fairy turned pink amidst the petals. The petals that filled the sky danced with the fairy. The fairy's gaze was calm as she walked in front of Jiang Yin. She extended her hand and said to him, "My name is Fairy Burial. Are you willing to let me be your guardian and fight with you?" "I'm willing," Jiang Yin answered seriously. "As you wish." Fairy Burial's palm pressed on Jiang Yan's forehead. A pink light spread out from the spot where his fingers touched Jiang Yan's forehead. In an instant, Fairy Burial's body transformed into countless petals that surged towards Jiang Yan's body, condensing into a flower armor that completely enveloped Jiang Yan's body. As more and more petals condensed on the armor, the original pink turned red. The red gradually turned dark red before turning purple. When all the petals fused into the flower armor, the armor had already turned dark purple. It looked strange and gorgeous. The flower armor looked extremely gorgeous, as though it was a perfect piece of art. However, for some reason, Zhou seemed to smell the scent of a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood in the gorgeous armor. It left him horrified. As the flower armor fused with Jiang Yan's body, his body erupted with unimaginable power. That power no longer belonged to the epic stage. It was shocking to the core. The Arch is right. The power of Guardian can indeed allow humans to enter the mythical stage. However, the main body of such an advancement is the armor formed by the Guardian, not the human himself, Zhou thought. Chapter 586. Sorry, it's done. Jiang Yan, who was wearing the armor of flowers, cupped his fists at Bai Zhe, who was above the clouds. Bai Zhe's eyes drooped as though he was thinking about something. Moments later, he glanced at Jiang Yan and Zhou before turning around and disappearing in the blink of an eye. Senior brother, congratulations on obtaining a guardian as you wished. Zhou hurriedly went forward to congratulate him. Do you think I'll forgive you just like that? What you did to me just now is unforgivable. Jiang Yan stared at Zhou as the corners of his mouth gradually curled up. Zhou cursed inwardly as he turned around and ran down the mountain. However, it was already too late. Jiang Yan's finger streaked across the void, and a flower that resembled a rose appeared between his fingers. The flower was beautiful and crimson like blood. Immortal Burial 6 Rites Sacrifice. With Jiang Yan's voice, the flower flew out from his fingers and instantly vanished. By the time the flower appeared again, it was already stuck in Zhou's hair. It stood upright like a lone flower growing on a grave. Zhou immediately felt his body unable to move like a dead person. Not only could his body not move, but even his heart and breathing had stopped. His body lay straight down. Although his bodily functions had completely stopped, he was still conscious and could sense everything around him. Jiang Yan's fingers moved slightly as the flower in Zhou's hair slanted slightly. Zhou opened his eyes and could move his mouth, but he still couldn't move his body. Senior brother, stop fooling around, Zhou said. How can it be fooling around? I'm thanking you for helping me so much just now, Jiang Yan said through gritted teeth as he kicked Zhou's ass. By the time Zhou returned to school, it had already been half a month since he left. After Jiang Yan obtained a guardian, his strength had indeed become very powerful. This strength was somewhat different from having a companion beast. Companion beasts were ultimately external forces that couldn't really increase their basic stats and bodily functions. However, the armor transformed from a guardian could fuse with the body to a certain extent, allowing the human body to possess the attributes and characteristics of a guardian. This was a basic improvement that allowed one to directly enter the mythical stage. However, this improvement was only limited to fusing with the guardian armor. After the guardian armor separated, Jiang Yan was still at the epic stage. His body didn't advance to the mythical stage. This resulted in Jiang Yan's strength being at the mythical stage only when he wore the guardian armor. However, Jiang Yan was indeed very strong when he wore the guardian armor. A guardian had an essence energy skill, life providence, life soul, and wheel of destiny. Having a guardian was equivalent to having an additional mythical body. When he saw Jiang Yan use all sorts of powerful powers, he realized that they were much stronger than when Hardadef used the six-winged seraphim. It was unknown if Fairy Burial was stronger than the six-winged seraphim, or if Jiang Yan was stronger than Hardadef, or a combination of both. This tempted Zhou, but he quickly rejected this thought. If he wasn't at his wit's end, he wasn't willing to take the path of contracting a guardian. Even if there was really no other way, he could still try spirit casting. However, spirit casting seemed to be more difficult and dangerous than contracting a guardian. From what Zhou knew, there were only two paths for humans to advance to the mythical stage. He had never heard of anyone advancing to the mythical stage purely with a human body. I should raise my life soul to a perfect body first. Perhaps there will be a solution when the time comes. Unless it's absolutely necessary, it's best not to take those two paths. This trip to Immortal Seeking Mountain gave Zhou some ideas. Using the mysterious taboo power in the dimensional zone to temper his zero taboo life soul was definitely feasible. However, since he didn't find the tiny palm symbol on a mortal-seeking mountain, it was impossible for Zhou to head there himself. Therefore, he planned on heading to small Buddha temple to give it a try. After entering the game, he switched to the zero taboo life soul. Without using blood meditation, the blood-colored avatar ascended the stone steps of small Buddha temple. As expected, zero taboo lit up. However, it wasn't as terrifying as the other places. It was still within an acceptable range. As small Buddha temple's taboo power corroded it, zero taboo became brighter and brighter as though it was about to burn. This level of taboo power was still within the range of his life soul's tolerance. Zero taboo was like steel that had been tempered in a furnace. Although the burning would shrink the crystal, it would also become purer. It's indeed useful. Zhou was overjoyed. Zero taboo could be said to be an excellent life preservation ability. In the future, when he headed to the various mysterious dimensional zones, he would definitely encounter many unimaginable taboo powers. When the time came, he would have to rely on zero taboo to preserve his life. If zero taboo could be raised to a perfect body, it would undoubtedly be extremely useful to Zhou. However, Zhou felt that it was too slow to raise zero taboo like this. Furthermore, if he stayed in-game in small Buddha temple, he wouldn't be able to grind. Therefore, Zhou decided to head to small Buddha temple in reality to train his zero taboo life soul. At the same time, he could use his phone to grind. This was a win-win situation. Just as Zhou was about to pack his things and head to small Buddha temple, he heard the doorbell ring. When he opened the door, he saw Wang Lu with the chick and antelope. When Zhou wasn't around, the two of them would run to Wang Lu's place by themselves. Zhou couldn't be bothered to pick them up. I'll return little Fei Fei and little antelope to you. You have to take good care of them in the future. Don't leave them in the dorm, Wang Lu said to Zhou. Got it, Zhou answered. Wang Lu bit her lip and said, I'm leaving. Where are you going? Zhou was slightly taken aback before he reacted and said, Didn't your uncle already agree to let you stay on campus to study? Did he go back on his word? Wang Lu shook her head and said, It's not that. I'm about to advance to the epic stage, so I have to return. What does advancing to the epic stage have to do with returning? Zhou was somewhat puzzled. The primordial energy art I cultivate is different from others. Every advancement will result in a regression. After I advance to the epic stage, I will fall back to the mortal stage in a very short period of time. Only by cultivating to the epic stage again can I stabilize it. During this period, my body is very prone to injuries, so Father wants me to return home to advance to the epic stage, Wang Lu said. I see. Then you really should return. Zhou felt that it was too troublesome for Wang Lu to cultivate this primordial energy art. However, such a troublesome primordial energy art was likely extraordinary in strength. As though understanding that Wang Lu was leaving, the antelope walked to Wang Lu's side. The chick also flew onto Wang Lu's shoulder, as though it was reluctant to part with her. Wang Lu hugged the chick and stroked the antelope's head. She said with a smile, If you can't bear to part with me, come home with me. After all, your master doesn't care about you. I wonder how much suffering you will suffer if you follow him. Chapter 587. Wang Lu had only asked jokingly. Even if the chick and antelope really left with her, she couldn't take Zhou's pets away. Having raised the chick and antelope for so long, how could she not know that these two-dimensional creatures had extraordinary origins? However, just as Wang Lu asked that question, the chick, who was originally very affectionate with her, flapped its wings and flew back to Zhou. It turned its face to the side as though it didn't know her. Although the antelope wasn't that heartless, it had no intention of leaving with her. It slowly walked back to Zhou's side. How infuriating. What kind of person keeps what kind of pet? They're all heartless cheats. All they know is to scam for food and drink. Wang Lu angrily pointed at the chick and said, I usually dote on you the most. I give you all the delicious food. You little cheat. Zhou was somewhat surprised. The antelope could be said to have other motives for following him, but the chick was so determined. Zhou never expected it to be so determined. This fellow was usually extremely close to Wang Lu and despised Zhou. He never expected it to stand on Zhou Wen's side at such a critical moment. "Where are you leaving?" Zhou Wen asked Wang Lu. "Someone will pick me up tonight," Wang Lu said. "I'll inform my classmates to send you off," Zhou Wen said. "There's no need. I don't like parting scenes." Wang Lu shook her head slightly before looking at Zhou Wen and saying, "You still owe me many meals. I've written it all down in my notebook. How are you going to return it to me?" "Can I give you a discount?" Zhou Wen asked. "Of course not." Wang Lu glared at him. "Then how do you want me to return it?" Zhou Wen said as he spread out his hands. "Anyway, just remember this debt." Wang Lu put away her notebook and turned to walk out of Four Seasons Garden. After taking a few steps, she stopped and said to Zhou Wen with her back facing him, "If you can't stay in the family any longer, remember to look for me in the capital. You can work at my place while paying your debts." With that said, Wang Lu left Four Seasons Garden along the small path. Zhou Wen watched Wang Lu leave and felt somewhat at a loss. He originally imagined that his 4 years in university would be relatively peaceful, but seeing people he was familiar with leave one by one, fate was unpredictable. "I hope we'll have the chance to meet again." Zhou Wen really wasn't sure if he could see Wang Lu again. Once the dimensional zones lost their effect, the roads between the major cities would definitely be cut off. It probably wouldn't be easy to go from Luoyang to the capital. At the end of the day, without strength, he probably wouldn't be able to do anything in the future. He might not even have a chance of survival. Therefore, Zhou Wen only wanted to quickly raise his strength. He didn't want to become an existence like Wang Mingyuan, nor did he want to contract a guardian. He wanted to give it a try and see if he could walk a path that belonged to him. Must humans not advance to the mythical stage with their bodies? Zhou Wen didn't believe that this was a conclusion. Since humans could advance to the legendary and epic stages, why couldn't they advance to the mythical stage? He walked all the way to Small Buddha Temple. This was a forbidden zone that forbade outsiders from approaching. However, Zhou Wen had the pass of tranquility, so he was naturally exempt. According to what Zhou Wen knew, Small Buddha Temple still had 2 mythical companion eggs. However, no one could take them away because no one had mastered the small perfection of wisdom. And Tianzhua had set this place as a forbidden zone and forbade outsiders from approaching because he didn't want enemy factions to master the small perfection of wisdom and obtain benefits from it. Zhou Wen walked up the stone steps in front of Small Buddha Temple as the zero taboo life soul lit up. Zhou Wen walked all the way to Small Buddha Temple. He originally planned on finding a place to sit down and game, but just as he entered Small Buddha Temple, he saw a person standing in the yard. Although he could only see the back of the tall figure, Zhou Wen still recognized her. "Why isn't Jing here?" Zhou Wen looked at the back and frowned slightly. And Jing was standing in front of the small perfection of Wisdom Sutra's stone monument, reading the sutras on it. When she sensed someone approaching, she turned her head and saw Zhou Wen. She also frowned slightly. Ever since Jing had the frost aura in her body melted away by Zhou Wen, her latent illness hadn't relapsed. Her cultivation level had also improved by leaps and bounds. In terms of talent, as siblings, Jing's talent wasn't inferior to Tianzua's. However, her congenital illness made her progress in cultivating the sun strafe art slow. Otherwise, her achievements would have been far greater. Now that her latent illness didn't relapse, Jing began seeking a breakthrough to the epic stage. The sun strafe art was a primordial energy art that focused on combat. To figure out its profundity and condense a life soul, one had to constantly challenge and break through. This challenge wasn't only about physical cultivation, but also mental and willpower. She had been in Small Buddha Temple for many days to look at the small perfection of Wisdom Sutra stone monument. It wasn't to cultivate the small perfection of Wisdom Sutra, but to use the effects the small perfection of Wisdom Sutra had on her body and mind to train herself. This training method was very dangerous. If she didn't control it well, it might cause irreparable damage to her body and mind. However, Jing was confident that she could control herself. Upon seeing Zhou Wen, and Jing felt mixed emotions. She was originally angry that her qualification had been taken away by Zhou Wen. She had always believed that Zhou Wen was far inferior to her, and she even felt that Ouyang Lan was biased. That was why she had sought trouble with Zhou Wen. Instead of saying that she was targeting Zhou Wen, it was better to say that she was unhappy with Ouyang Lan. However, what happened later exceeded in Jing's expectations. Zhou Wen's repeated achievements left her in a different light. In just a short year, he had advanced from the mortal stage to the epic stage, surpassing her in terms of level. He had even accidentally removed her ailment. Although Jing didn't pay much attention to the Sunset Army, she was still a member of the family. She would more or less hear about Zhou Wen, making her involuntarily pay attention to him in secret. However, many of the rumors regarding Zhou Wen left Jing in disbelief. She couldn't believe that Zhou Wen had done such shocking things. She felt as though she was being left behind by Zhou Wen. If it were anyone else, they might feel remorseful and blame everything on the qualification that should have belonged to her, but it had been taken away by Zhou Wen. However, Jing was clearly not such a person. Therefore, she would only work harder to make herself stronger. Even if she didn't have the qualification, she would still be better than Zhou Wen. Zhou Wen and Jing had nothing to say. Since Jing was here, he walked into the temple hall. This time, no one disturbed the other. As Zhou Wen already had Truth Listener, he didn't trigger the three-faced Buddha's power when he entered the temple hall again. After finding a spot in the temple hall to sit down, Zhou Wen took out his phone again. Although he could get the blood-colored avatar to come to small Buddha temple to double the cultivation effects, Zhou Wen didn't think it was necessary. He still had to grind dungeons and rare dimensional creatures every day. So go. Chapter 588. Zhou Wen was gaming in the temple hall, so he didn't pay much attention to the silence outside. However, Jing couldn't ignore Zhou Wen. Although Zhou Wen was in the temple hall, and Jing couldn't see him, she had a nagging feeling that there was a gaze watching her from inside the temple hall. I won't be inferior to you. Jing forced herself to focus and continued reading the small perfection of Wisdom Sutra. Perhaps it was because of the catfish effect. Ever since Zhou Wen came, Jing felt that she could persevere better and improve faster. In the past, Jing would feel that her body and mind had reached their limits after reading the small perfection of Wisdom Sutra for an hour. However, for some reason, perhaps because she felt that Zhou Wen was watching her from inside, Jing lasted for an hour and a half this time, feeling that she hadn't reached her limit. Zhou Wen had no idea that he had such a use. He leaned against a pillar in the temple hall and gamed. The blood-colored avatar entered Deer Terrace Pavilion again. The fake immortals on the first two levels had been eliminated. Zhou Wen controlled the blood-colored avatar to ascend to the third highest level. Could the arch be on the third level? If she's really here, I can find her weakness in-game. Once I defeat her, I can teach her a lesson in real life. Zhou Wen was somewhat excited. After getting the blood-colored avatar to ascend to the third level, he quickly sized up the situation inside. Similar to the second level, there was only one-dimensional creature on the third level. It was a cold, white-robed female immortal sitting on a throne. Could she be the Arch? Zhou Wen guessed inwardly, but he didn't stay in a daze. He ordered Torch Dragon to use the bright torch vision world and look at the white-robed female immortal. Zhou Wen also stared at the white-robed female immortal. With a wave of her hand, a white jade pipa appeared in her arms. She waved her fingers on the strings and immediately produced a terrifying sound wave. Thankfully, Zhou Wen was prepared and had used the demon dragon true body. However, he was still sent flying by the sound wave, vomiting blood as he slammed into a stone pillar in the hall. However, almost at the same time, the white-robed female immortal was sucked into Torch Dragon's bright torch vision world. A notification of killing the Jade Pipa spirit appeared on the phone screen. So it's Jade Pipa spirit, not that demon concubine. Zhou Wen was somewhat disappointed. Of the legendary three demons of Xian Yuan, Nine-Headed Pheasant Spirit, Jade Pipa Spirit, and Nine-Tailed Fox, Zhou Wen had already seen the first two, but there was no sign of the Nine-Tailed Fox. Although a nine-tailed fox phantom would appear when flying towards Deer Terrace Pavilion from the sky, it was only a phantom and not the true body. The bright torch vision world could only reflect the true body, so it was useless against phantoms. He controlled the blood-colored avatar to search the third level. Logically speaking, Deer Terrace Pavilion shouldn't be that simple. Furthermore, he was certain that the Jade Loot Spirit wasn't the Arch. However, Zhou searched the third floor of the ancient building several times, but he didn't find anything. There wasn't even a dimensional crystal, much less any treasures. From the looks of it, the true secrets of Deer Terrace Pavilion are below, but where is the entrance? There's no such gap in the game. How do we get in? Zhou had attempted to use Torch Dragon to attack Deer Terrace Pavilion, but seemed to be protected by some mysterious force. Even the bright torch vision world was unable to break through it. Zhou circled around Deer Terrace Pavilion countless times, but he failed to find the entrance below. Unable to find the entrance, Zhou could only temporarily give up on Deer Terrace Pavilion and continue grinding other dungeons. At the same time, he trained the Zero Taboo Life Soul in Small Buddha Temple. For the next few days, Zhou spent most of his time in Small Buddha Temple. Every time he came, he could see Jing reading the Small Perfection of Wisdom Sutra Stone Monument. One day, Zhou was grinding when he suddenly saw a bright light in the yard. The light shone in from the temple hall's door, illuminating the temple hall. Zhou frowned slightly as he walked out of the temple hall to take a look. He saw Jing standing in front of the stone monument, her body emitting wisps of light that condensed into a sun-like shadow. The shadow looked somewhat similar to the ancient sovereign that Zhou had condensed. They were both illusory forms of light, and it looked like humans. The difference was that the ancient sovereign was a pure humanoid shadow, while Jing's shadow looked like it was holding a bow of light in its hand. Furthermore, the shadow looked more feminine. It wasn't as muscular as the ancient sovereign and was more slender. The Sunstrafe art is indeed somewhat similar to the ancient Sovereign Sutra, but there are also differences. After watching for a while, Zhou was about to turn around and return to the temple hall to continue grinding when he was stopped by Jing. Zhou, it's time to end our matter, and Jing said as she stared at Zhou. Is there anything between us that needs to be settled? Zhou turned around and asked Jing, and Jing's gaze narrowed slightly. I once defeated you. Don't you want to win it back? I've never treated you as my opponent. Zhou shook his head slightly and turned to return to the temple hall. Stop. Zhou words stirred Jing's fighting spirit. Her life soul fused with her body, causing her body to emit a sun-like glow. In her hand, a bow condensed from light appeared. Zhou words could be understood as him never treating Jing as an enemy, but could also be understood as him never taking Jing seriously. And Jing clearly believed that Zhou had the latter mentality. She pulled open the beam bow in her hand and pointed it at Zhou's back before continuing, Take this arrow of mine, and the grudge between us will be written off. Just as Jing said that, she suddenly felt her vision blur. Zhou's body emitted a glow that was even more intense and dazzling than the glow on her body. He was already in front of her, and his sun-like fist was about to strike her face. And Jing gritted her teeth and retreated, raising the bow in her hand to block. Boom! And Jing was sent flying with her bow and arrow by Zhou's punch. She streaked across more than 10 meters like a cannonball and slammed into the temple's wall. Wah! And Jing spat out a mouthful of blood as the glow on her body dimmed and she fell to the ground. As you wish. Don't bother me in the future. Zhou really wasn't in the mood to play childish games with Jing. After returning to the temple hall, Zhou continued grinding while Jing sat on the ground in a daze, motionless for a long time. She still remembered that she had defeated Zhou in one strike back then, but now she couldn't even withstand a single punch from Zhou. After a long while, Jing wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and stood up. Her eyes gradually turned resolute as she looked in the direction of the temple hall before turning to walk out of Small Buddha Temple. I have to defeat you. although her goal was the same as before, and Jing's mentality was completely different from before. So Gu. Chapter 589. Luoyang and Family. And Jing came in front of Tianzhua and said firmly, "Brother, I want to join the military." "Why?" And Tianzhua asked in Jing. "I've already advanced to the epic stage. The things I can learn in school are very limited. I need a place that can allow me to improve faster." And Jing hesitated for a moment before saying, "I know this will put you in a difficult position. Mom definitely won't agree, but you will help me, right? Brother, have you really thought it through? The military isn't a school, although it's also a dimensional zone. Those unexplored dimensional zones are hundreds or thousands of times more dangerous than the dimensional zones you have come into contact with in the past." And Tianzhua stared at Jing and asked solemnly, "I've thought it through." And Jing answered seriously, "All right, you're my precious sister after all." And Tianzhua stood up and patted Jing on the head. He said with a smile, "Tell me, where do you want to go?" "Chess Mountain," and Jing answered. And Tianzhua's expression changed slightly. "Why choose that place?" "Because it's the most dangerous place," and Jing answered. "Apart from Chess Mountain, any other place will do." And Tianzhua firmly rejected Jing. "Apart from Chess Mountain, I'm not going anywhere else." And Jing looked Tianzhua in the eye without backing down. And Tianzhua's gaze finally softened. He could be ruthless to anyone, but he couldn't do anything to Jing and Ouyang Lan. "I can let you go to Chess Mountain, but you have to agree to one condition." And Tianzhua paused for a moment before continuing, "I'll get Little Knife to go with you to Chess Mountain. During this period of time in Chess Mountain, she has to be by your side at all times. You can't shake her off." "All right." And Jing knew that this was Tianzhua's greatest concession. If she didn't agree, and Tianzhua definitely wouldn't let her go to Chess Mountain. "How long do you plan on going?" And Tianzhua asked again. "I'll return after my life soul advances to a perfect body," and Jing said. After Jing left, and Tianzhua called Sheng over and informed him of Jing's trip to Chess Mountain. Then, he got Sheng to make the arrangements. "Isn't Chess Mountain too dangerous? Although Little Knife is following Miss and no one can guarantee her safety if there's a large-scale breakout at Chess Mountain." And Sheng said worriedly, "Don't underestimate this sister of mine. Besides, Chess Mountain shouldn't have any major problems in the short term. Just do as I say." And Tianzhua paused for a moment before saying, "Have you found the sources of the companion beasts? All the major factions in the Federation are investigating. We can roughly confirm that most of the companion beasts come from overseas. A small portion of them were secretly nurtured by the local bigwigs," and Sheng answered. "Tianzhua Tianji, from a Zhou clan of God, and Shan, Yi, and Chunyanglan." "I see." "As I God, the Zhou Yang, and Jing Zhoulan, and Shan, and of Shun, of Shunin." The first spot on the rankings was still firmly occupied by Primordial Sword Immortal. Death of the Underworld was still second. The other top 10 had dropped to a certain extent. And in Chunin, and that night, the black cubes all over the world lit up again. As the black cubes had been lighting up too frequently recently, people were numb to it. Only a few people passing by on the street would pay attention to see which companion beasts were on the rankings. It wasn't like in the past, when many people would wake up in the middle of the night to take a look. A peacock appeared on the cube screens all over the world. It was gorgeous and elegant. Soon, this companion beast named Thousand-Eyed Peacock entered the top 20, right in front of the six-winged guardian dragon. It pushed the six-winged guardian dragon back one place. The 100th-place ranking was filled. The people who were watching in front of the cube imagined that it would end here. The companion beasts that had been on the rankings in the past were all the same. However, to everyone's surprise, the cube didn't turn black like before. After the ranking disappeared, a new scene appeared on the cube screen. The scene on the screen rotated as though there were countless stars flowing. As the camera zoomed in, the screen seemed to pass through billions of light years before gradually turning black. Everyone looked at the cube screen in puzzlement, unsure what was going on. When the screen lit up again, the scene had already turned into an emerald green grassland. Colorful flowers dotted it, and all the plants suffused a gentle divine glow as though they were protected by a deity. On the grassland, there was a huge tree. The tree was like a divine tree, emitting a divine glow as it bore resplendent fruits. Every fruit was crystalline, as though there were billions of stars swirling inside. Through the screen, one could sense the terrifying supreme might emitted by the fruits. As the camera zoomed in, the screen froze under the tree. Sitting there was a handsome man with white hair and a white robe. On the man's head was a pair of crystal-like dragon horns. He sat cross-legged under the tree with his eyes closed. He was like a deity that no one could blaspheme. It was as though looking directly at his face was disrespectful to a deity. So handsome. Who is the man under the tree? Is he human? Or is he a companion beast? Many women's eyes lit up when they saw the man sitting cross-legged under the tree. However, the expressions of those who knew the man changed drastically, especially those from the 6 families. Their expressions were so ugly that they were about to freeze. And Tianzua stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window on the top floor of Great Xia. His gaze pierced through the night and looked at the cube screen in the distance. And Sheng stood beside him and said with a strange expression, "Wang Mingyuan, could it be that these cubes are his handiwork? I'm not sure if it's his handiwork, but from the looks of it, something is really going to happen." And Tianzua said indifferently as he looked at the screen. The people from his 6 families began to gather in front of the cube, and it was even more so in the bureau. The originally silent night also became restless. Countless people who were sleeping were woken up by the ringing of their cell phones. The constantly lit-up lights illuminated the city's night sky especially bright. Shen Yuqi, Qiao Siyuan, and company were staring at the screen. Many inspectors were busy with their work. Ever since Wang Mingyuan rushed into the dimension, this was the first time he had really appeared. Although he hadn't even seen Wang Mingyuan, the Bureau had been battling Wang Mingyuan for a long time. Now, many high-level experts in the Federation had secretly entered the dimension after mutating. This was clearly Wang Mingyuan's handiwork. Although the Bureau had been trying its best to prevent this from happening, the results were minimal. People all over the world began to pay attention to the cube screen again. Although many people didn't know Wang Mingyuan's identity, they could sense that something was amiss. Do you want to become a god? Then let's fight. Wang Mingyuan sat under the tree with his eyes still closed. His expression was calm and unperturbed. His right hand, which seemed to be glowing with divine radiance, slowly reached out. A fruit fell from the tree and landed in his hand. Sogu. Chapter 590. Wang Mingyuan held the fruit in his right hand and rubbed it with his thumb a few times. Divine light flowed on the fruit wherever his finger passed. In the next second, Wang Mingyuan flipped his palm, and the fruit fell onto the grass and rolled to the side. Wang Mingyuan remained unmoved. He continued to sit under the tree with his eyes closed as if he was meditating. At the place where the fruit had fallen, a green worm crawled over from the grass. It slowly crawled onto the fruit and began to gnaw on it. The worm was very small. It looked no different from a caterpillar. Its movements were also very clumsy. It crawled onto the fruit with great difficulty and nibbled at it bit by bit. The fruit was only the size of a palm, and the worm was even smaller. It was inconspicuous as it crawled on top of the fruit. Soon, the green worm's body swelled up like a balloon as it nibbled on the fruit. When its body became big enough to swallow the fruit, it swallowed it in one gulp. Then, its body swelled up even more crazily. In the blink of an eye, the original caterpillar had turned into a terrifying giant beast. Its body had become dozens of meters long. This transformation didn't stop. The body of the worm that had turned into a giant worm emitted a terrifying divine radiance. The divine radiance was like a burning flame that enveloped the body of the giant worm. It constantly emitted light. When the light reached its peak, it emitted an explosion of light that almost made people unable to open their eyes. When the light gradually subsided, everyone was surprised to find that the giant worm had actually turned into a beautiful butterfly. What was even more surprising was that in the center of the butterfly's wings, there was a body that resembled a human woman. She was wearing cyan glass-like armor and had a pair of antennae on top of her head. Her entire body emitted an unparalleled radiance. It was like a goddess of light with butterfly wings had descended. All the humans were dumbfounded. They watched helplessly as a worm turned into such a terrifying creature. Their gazes as they looked at the fruit on the tree became fiery. Many people were thinking that if such a weak worm could become so terrifyingly powerful after eating the fruit, what would happen if they ate the fruit? The worm that had turned into a butterfly woman stared greedily at the fruit of the tree of God. Her butterfly wings flapped, and the circular patterns on the wings started to light up, starting from the outer circle. The closer it was to the center, the brighter it became. When the innermost circular patterns lit up, it was like two suns were embedded on her butterfly wings. Boom! Two terrifying beams of light shot out from the center of the butterfly wings, directly piercing through the void and bombarding the divine tree. The terrifying power made people feel that it could even pierce through mountains, let alone a tree. However, the two terrifying beams of light failed to touch the divine tree. Wang Mingyuan, who was sitting cross-legged under the tree with his eyes closed, remained motionless. His body emitted a mysterious glow that blocked the butterfly girl's two beams of light like a protective barrier. The terrifying beam power couldn't even penetrate the light emitted by Wang Mingyuan's body. The butterfly girl's wings flickered as she gritted her teeth and persisted in shooting the beam, but it was in vain. Wang Mingyuan stretched out a palm, seemingly casually spreading his fingers. The light on the butterfly girl's wings instantly extinguished, and her body involuntarily flew towards Wang Mingyuan. The closer she got to Wang Mingyuan, the smaller her body became. In the blink of an eye, she landed in Wang Mingyuan's palm like an ordinary butterfly. No matter how she flapped her wings and struggled, she couldn't fly out of Wang Mingyuan's palm. A strange glow rose from Wang Mingyuan's palm. The glow was like a stream of light that revolved around the butterfly lady faster and faster. Finally, the butterfly lady's body was completely enveloped by the spinning stream of light. When the stream of light dissipated, Wang Mingyuan's palm was empty. Boom! The image of the cube changed. The images of Wang Mingyuan and the tree of God vanished, turning into the image of the cube itself. The butterfly girl was standing on the cube, and beside her appeared her name, Radiant Butterfly Queen. Perhaps it was because the top 100 rankings already had an owner, but the name of the Radiant Butterfly Queen didn't appear on the rankings. But soon, everyone realized that the name of the Dark Monarch, who was ranked 9th on the rankings, had lit up. Before long, the Dark Monarch's figure appeared on the cube and faced the Radiant Butterfly Queen. When the Radiant Butterfly Queen saw the Dark Monarch, the light on her wings lit up again without any hesitation. Circles of light lit up and finally condensed into a dot in the middle. Two beams of light shot out like lasers. They were so fast that no one had time to dodge. The Dark Monarch was a skeleton wearing black armor. Its body burned with black flames, and the sword that represented darkness tore out of its scabbard. The sky behind it turned dark because of the unsheathing of the dark sword. As the dark sword slashed at the Radiant Butterfly Queen, the darkness devoured the light in front of it. Boom! The two beams blasted into the darkness, and the dark sword collided with the power of light. Amidst the terrifying power of light, the Dark Monarch let out a miserable scream. His body and the dark sword were rapidly purified by the power of light, and moments later, they completely disappeared. The battle scene disappeared, and the rankings appeared on the cube screens around the world. The Dark Monarch's name, which was previously ranked 9th, vanished. The Radiant Butterfly Queen's name appeared in 9th place where the Dark Monarch had been. The people who were watching the battle were alarmed. Previously, when they saw Wang Mingyuan suppress the Radiant Butterfly Queen with a flip of his hand, they thought that she was nothing much. However, who knew that she would easily defeat the 9th-ranked Dark Monarch? Although they could tell that there was an attribute restraint, this also meant that the Radiant Butterfly Queen had the strength to rank in the top 10. The scene on the cube changed, and Wang Mingyuan appeared on the screen again. He was still sitting cross-legged under the divine tree with his eyes closed. When they saw him again, many people's expressions turned complicated. As for the divine tree and fruit behind him, they became the focus of everyone's attention. It was just a bug. After eating a fruit, it had become a powerful existence like the Radiant Butterfly Queen, and there are still many fruits on the tree. The next fruit on the divine tree ripens in 3 months. When the time comes, the owner of the first place on the companion beast ranking will have the right to pluck the fruit. Wang Mingyuan's voice spread to every corner of the world through the cube, causing many complicated thoughts to surface in the minds of all humans. After this sentence, the screen of the cube dimmed and became pitch black. There was no longer a trace of light. However, people's enthusiasm didn't extinguish because of the screen's closure. In any case, it became even more intense. The media constantly released the videos they had recorded. In the middle of the night, many people were discussing the divine tree and the fruit, as well as who would have the right to pluck the ripe divine fruit in 3 months. Chapter 591. Overseer, what do you think of this matter? And Tianzua sat back on the sofa as Sheng poured him a cup of tea and asked, "What do you think?" And Tianzua placed his finger on the teacup and rubbed it, but he had no intention of picking it up. Wang Mingyuan is a very powerful person. He displayed the miraculous effects of the fruit and also proved the strength of the Radiant Butterfly Queen. He didn't say much, but his words were filled with irresistible temptation. However, if you think about it carefully, you will realize that he didn't say a single word about the key problem, and Sheng answered. And Tianzua picked up his teacup and took a sip. After savoring the aftertaste, he put down the teacup and said, "Tell me, what's the key?" Firstly, we don't know where the fruit tree is. We can't be sure if we can really pluck the fruit when the time comes. Secondly, the true use of the fruit is unknown. Although he has already displayed the ability of the fruit, we still don't know if the Radiant Butterfly Queen is a dimensional creature, a companion beast, or just an ordinary worm. It's even possible that it's a creature with mythical strength to begin with. The fruit only stimulated it, allowing it to display its true strength. After a pause, Sheng continued, taking a step back, even if the fruit is really useful, is it useful to humans? If it's only useful to companion beasts, its value will be greatly discounted. As we can see, there are already 100 mythical companion beasts on the rankings. With these mythical companion beasts as a foundation, humans will have the ability to kill mythical creatures. In the future, they will only obtain more and more mythical companion beasts. There doesn't seem to be a need to take the risk to compete for first place. If we can think of this, Wang Mingyuan can naturally think of it as well. However, he deliberately didn't say anything. What does this mean? And Tianzua pondered. It's hard to guess. If Wang Mingyuan wanted to trigger a free-for-all, he wouldn't have left so many doubts to make people wary. Under such circumstances, I'm afraid not many people will try their best to snatch first place. And Sheng said, could it be that Wang Mingyuan doesn't want the competition to become so intense? And Tianzua said, after some thought, that doesn't seem to make sense. What benefits does this have for him? And Sheng said, the various large family clans were studying Wang Mingyuan's intentions. Most people's judgments were similar to in Tianzua and in Sheng. They were suspicious of Wang Mingyuan's purpose in giving away the fruit. With such a magical fruit, Wang Mingyuan could have kept it for himself. Why did he take it out? There were all kinds of speculations, and the ordinary people had different opinions. However, most people's opinions were more inclined towards conspiracy theories, and they all suspected that this was Wang Mingyuan's plot. Some said that Wang Mingyuan wanted to start a war between humans and weaken them. Others said that Wang Mingyuan wanted to use the fruit to lure human experts into the dimension. In any case, there were all kinds of comments, but there was no movement at all on the leaderboard. No one challenged the rankings because of this. When Zhou learned of this matter, it was already the third day after it happened. As he had spent most of his time in small Buddha temple, he didn't watch the news, so he naturally didn't know that so much had happened. It wasn't until Li Xian sent a message to Zhou when that he learned of what had happened and watched the video online. What is teacher trying to do? Zhou was also guessing at Wang Mingyuan's intentions. He didn't know Wang Mingyuan very well, but if Wang Mingyuan's heart hadn't changed, he likely wouldn't weaken humanity's combat strength. However, people were fickle. No one knew if Wang Mingyuan's heart would change with his identity. Old Zhou, you're a Wang Mingyuan student. With your understanding of him, do you think those fruits can really allow humans to advance to the mythical stage? Li Xian asked. I really don't know. From beginning to end, teacher never said that those fruits can allow humans to advance to the mythical stage. I think it's best you don't have too much hope, Zhou said. How can I have any hope? Even if I believe that the fruit is real and Wang Mingyuan isn't lying, I don't have a mythical creature to vie for first place. Mythical pets aren't cabbages that can be picked up easily. Our Wang family doesn't even have a mythical companion beast, Li Xian said. There are 100 mythical companion beasts on the rankings now. As humans increase the number of mythical companion beasts in their hands, their popularity will accelerate, Zhou said. Let's not talk about this. Your six-winged guardian dragon's ranking has dropped so much. Do you still have a chance of vying for first place? Li Xian asked. Probably not. Zhou knew very well that Six Wings' main function was to protect. Compared to those powerful offensive pets, its combat strength was still inferior. Ignoring everything else, Six-Winged Guardian Dragon probably couldn't withstand the Radiant Butterfly Queen's terrifying beam. That's really a pity. I heard from them that only companion beasts can participate in the ranking battle. Otherwise, you might be able to try vying for first place. Li Xian felt sorry for Zhou. He felt that if the owner of a companion beast could also participate in the battle, Zhou's ranking might be higher. The two of them chatted for a while before Li Xian went to cultivate. He had improved very quickly recently. In the constant battles with dimensional creatures, the carapace formed by his life soul was constantly shattered before being reborn and becoming stronger. Now he had advanced to an evolved body. However, after advancing to an evolved body, there was no way for his life soul to continue evolving just from being injured in battle. Li Xian was also searching for a way to advance. I wonder if Torch Dragon can obtain first place on the rankings. Zhou was rather covetous of the Divine Tree's fruit. He didn't expect the Divine Tree's fruit to advance to the mythical stage. As long as the fruit could advance a companion beast to the mythical stage, it was already very attractive to Zhou. He had a few companion beasts on him. Although they weren't at the mythical stage, their combat strength and abilities were extremely outstanding. For example, Dr. Darkness, Fiend-Armored Tiger Soul General, and so on. If they could advance to the mythical stage, they would definitely be very useful. Of course, Zhou didn't dare let a companion beast like the Fiend-Armored Tiger Soul General advance again. Even if none of these could be used, it was good to let Banana Fairy advance to the mythical stage as soon as possible. Now, Banana Fairy Supreme Een Wind couldn't keep up with his needs. Tyrant Behemoth has already evolved for so long. Why hasn't it completed its evolution? Zhou glanced at the chaos space and couldn't help but frown when he saw that Tyrant Behemoth hadn't evolved. Suddenly, the mysterious phone vibrated. Zhou took out his phone and saw that the Dead Man Tree had appeared on the screen. The fruit that had grown after absorbing Jack had finally matured. Chapter 592. Zhou was delighted as he plucked the grenade-like companion egg off the Dead Man Tree and quickly checked its stats. Explosive Fiend Man, Mortal, Evolvable, Strength, 11 Speed, 11 Constitution, 11 Essence Energy, 11 Innate Skills, Death List, Time Blast. Companion Form, Self-Destruct Device, Mortal Stage. Zhou immediately felt a headache. The time and resources needed to rear a companion beast were astonishing. The main reason was that it wasn't of any use in a short period of time. Zhou carefully read the skill introduction of Explosive Fiend Man. The more he read, the more pleasantly surprised he became. Although he didn't know what Explosive Fiend Man's life providence and life soul would be in the future, just these two skills were already very terrifying. Time Blast was similar to Life Blast, but it was more flexible. It could turn some life forms into time bombs. However, this required preparation in advance. The stronger the life form's energy, the stronger the explosive power. After all, using Time Blast required the target to be still. If he wanted to use it on a living creature, he would have to deal with the target first, which was more troublesome. The truly terrifying skill was the Death List. This skill was clearly fused with the mythical Black Cat's Curse skill. As long as the target signed their name on the Death List, they could control the target's life and death, turning the target into a time bomb. Of course, the Death List was not a physical existence. It could be placed on any piece of paper, jade, wood, or even walls and floors. As long as the other party signed their names, it would be effective. This companion beast was perfect for assassination. As for the Explosive Fiend Man's companion form, it was also very terrifying. As the name suggested, the self-destruct device was a skill that allowed him to explode. This skill could only be used once, and it would explode all of his energy, perishing together with the enemy. For others, this companion state was basically impossible to use. Under normal circumstances, they would not be willing to let the Explosive Fiend Man self-destruct. However, Zhou was different. He couldn't make Explosive Fiend Man self-destruct in reality, but he could in the game. Thinking about how Explosive Fiend Man would advance to the deified stage and self-destruct, the power would definitely be terrifying. This was a very extreme companion beast. If used well, it could kill gods and Buddhas. If not used well, it might just be useless trash. I wonder what Explosive Fiend Man's life providence and life soul will be. Without any thought, Zhou hatched Explosive Fiend Man. He thought highly of this companion beast and planned on spending a lot of effort to nurture it. After Explosive Fiend Man hatched, a companion beast covered in black-gray armor that looked like a magnetic explosion infantryman appeared in front of Zhou. Its height and build were about the same as Jack's, but due to its armor, it was impossible to tell what it looked like. Zhou tried Explosive Fiend Man's skill in-game. Typical dimensional creatures didn't know how to sign, so the Death List skill was practically useless. The Time Blast skill could only be used with the help of some plants or animals that could not move. The power of the skill depended on the energy contained in the creature itself. It needed to be used in a specific environment, and it was not suitable for use in normal battles. His self-destruct device, on the other hand, was a pleasant surprise. When he turned into a self-destruct device, he was like an armor lock, locking all the targets that he could touch, making it impossible for them to escape. The might of the self-destruct was also very powerful. Explosive Fiend Man, who was only at the mortal stage, could heavily injure a legendary dimensional creature when he self-destructed. I have to think of a way to raise Explosive Fiend Man to the mythical stage. In the future, I'll have to rely on him to kill bosses. I'll lock onto a boss and self-destruct. Perhaps I can directly blast a mythical boss to death. Zhou felt a little worried as he thought about it. It was relatively easy to advance to the legendary and epic stages, but advancing to the mythical stage was extremely difficult. I'll slowly nurture it and see. Zhou attempted to feed Explosive Fiend Man with companion beasts. Thankfully, Explosive Fiend Man wasn't picky with food. Be it companion beasts or companion eggs, he ate them all the same. I wonder if I can use the fruits of the longevity tree to feed Explosive Fiend Man. Zhou thought to himself. Demonic Neonate had picked up so many longevity fruits and would ask Zhou one for one to eat every day. Zhou only dared to feed Demonic Neonate these longevity fruits. He didn't dare feed the other pets randomly. Who knew if the longevity fruit would have any side effects? Demonic Neonate was fine after eating the longevity fruit, but it didn't mean that the other pets would be fine after eating it. Therefore, Zhou didn't dare feed it randomly. This Explosive Fiend Man was equally terrifying. Zhou felt that he could try feeding it the longevity fruit. If he was willing to eat it, his evolution speed would be much faster. However, this seemed a little risky. Zhou was somewhat hesitant. Suddenly, Zhou thought of something. The longevity fruit could allow people to rapidly evolve, and it could also allow companion beasts to rapidly evolve. This function seemed very similar to the divine fruit. Although the two trees looked different, their functions were very similar. However, the effects of the longevity fruit weren't as strong as the fruits of the divine tree. Back then, Lord Alcohol was already at the epic stage. He had eaten a longevity fruit, but he hadn't truly entered the mythical stage. Zhou thought for a moment and didn't take the risk with Explosive Fiend Man. There is only one such companion beast, so it was impossible for a second one to drop. He would rather feed it slowly than let anything happen. When he arrived at Small Buddha Temple again, Zhou continued training Zero Taboo. After this period of training, the Zero Taboo crystal had already been refined to a crystalline state, resplendent like a diamond. It was very difficult for Small Buddha Temple's taboo power to melt the crystal like before. Just as Zhou was walking into the temple, the Zero Taboo crystal suddenly emitted a terrifying glow. The crystal was like a Rubik's Cube as it spun on its own. The crystal structure was spinning and reforming, making it look extremely mysterious. Is it about to evolve? Zhou was delighted. After training for so long, he had finally waited for Zero Taboo to evolve. As the crystal spun, a strange light was produced inside. The light was extremely strange. It was like a cloud or fog, but also looked like a nebula. As the blob of light inside changed, the crystal constantly shrank. Before long, the blob of light was larger than the crystal itself, enveloping it in a nebula-like blob of light. Zhou also felt a mysterious power flow out from the nebula, making his body feel more and more relaxed. He could almost no longer sense the taboo power of Small Buddha Temple. Boom! Suddenly, the nebula blob of light instantly shrank. When it shrank to its limit, there was a huge explosion. The explosion in his sea of consciousness wasn't real, but it made Zhou's consciousness fall into a momentary daze. When he snapped to his senses and looked into his sea of consciousness again, he widened his mouth in shock. So goo. Chapter 593. He saw that Zero Taboo, which was originally a crystal, had transformed into a baby. It sat cross-legged in Zhou's consciousness space like a crystal jade statue. Furthermore, this baby looked very similar to Zhou himself. Zhou vaguely remembered that there were photos of him when he was young in his hometown. They seemed very similar to the baby in his consciousness space. Zhou was in Small Buddha Temple, but he didn't sense the taboo powers of Small Buddha Temple. The baby jade statue didn't emit any light either. Its eyes were closed as though it was asleep. Zhou opened his eyes and switched on a mysterious phone to look at the blood-colored avatar's information. He saw that the name and annotation in the Life Soul column had changed. God's Retreat, evolved body, wherever the life soul goes, the gods will avoid it. This introduction is even more impressive than before, but I wonder what its true effects are? Zhou felt that the annotation was a little too arrogant. It was clear that wherever this life spirit went, even the gods and Buddhas would have to avoid it. How could an evolved life spirit have such a great reputation? However, no matter what, he could indeed sense the growth of the life soul. This was because Small Buddha Temple's taboo was completely ineffective against the jade infant named God's Retreat. Zhou knew that it was probably useless staying here. All he could do was find a taboo land stronger than Small Buddha Temple and see if he could improve God's Retreat. Nothing is taboo in the God's Retreat. I wonder what a perfect body will become. Zhou was more curious about the life soul condensed by the Tao body. Unlike other life souls, every evolution of a Tao body life soul seemed to bring about a huge change. We're going to be a taboo power stronger than Small Buddha Temple. Immortal Seeking Mountain? It's too far. Furthermore, I don't know the way to Immortal Seeking Mountain. Zhou left Small Buddha Temple and pondered where he should continue cultivating. After some thought, Zhou felt that the best place to go was probably White Cloud Mountain's Jade Emperor Peak. There was an extremely powerful taboo power there, so perhaps it could improve God's retreat further. Zhou had already downloaded the White Cloud Mountain dungeon into his phone, but the name was Demon Suppression Mountain. After opening the Demon Suppression Mountain dungeon, the blood-colored avatar appeared outside Jade Emperor Peak's entrance. Zhou still remembered that the last time he stepped into the mountain, Zero Taboo had lasted less than 10 seconds before nearly exploding. I wonder how long I can last now. Zhou activated God's retreat life soul and controlled the blood-colored avatar to walk into Jade Emperor Peak. The moment he entered, the God's retreat life soul opened its eyes, and its crystalline body emitted a strange treasure glow. Then, Zhou saw a strange force surge towards the baby Jade statue. Unlike the Zero Taboo from before, the baby Jade statue's life soul actually absorbed the mysterious taboo power into its body and made it its own. Not only did the taboo power fail to injure, but it also strengthened the baby glow, protecting him. God. What a powerful life spirit. Doesn't that mean I can come and go freely on Jade Emperor Peak? I don't have to worry about the length of time? God Zhou, when controlled when walked, he said. 1. He followed the stone steps and didn't go far before he saw a hall. There was a stone bee statue on each side of the hall's door. The stone bee statues looked rather strange. The two stone statues were squatting and looked like stone tigers, but they had curved horns on their heads. Their bodies were engraved with patterns like fire clouds. What was even stranger was that the two stone tigers had a word engraved on their foreheads. The stone tiger on the right side of the door had the word suppress engraved on its forehead, while the stone tiger on the right had the word demon. Just as Zhou approached the hall, he saw the word demon suppression on the two stone tigers' foreheads light up. As the word demon suppression lit up, Zhou realized that the strange power in the god's retreat, Jade Infant's body, was like a river flowing backwards. It surged into the Jade Infant's body, causing it to reveal a look of pain. Its body began to show signs of abnormality as though cracks were appearing. Zhou hurriedly controlled the blood-colored avatar to retreat from Jade Emperor Peak. Although the god's retreat, Jade Infant, didn't have the ability to make the deity's retreat, its ability was indeed much stronger than Zero Taboo. Furthermore, it could absorb the taboo power. However, the power of the word demon suppression was too powerful, preventing the Jade Infant from digesting it in time. Although I can't enter the hall, I've finally found the method to evolve the Jade Infant. In the future, I'll just cultivate in Jade Emperor Peak. It's only a matter of time before I advance to a perfect body. Zhou was considering if he should personally make a trip to White Cloud Mountain. Otherwise, he would only be able to stay in-game on Jade Emperor Peak. He wouldn't be able to grind other dungeons. I'll make a trip to White Cloud Mountain. Perhaps I'll have a chance to see the Immortal Palace phenomenon. After some consideration, Zhou decided to make a trip to White Cloud Mountain in reality. He told Sheng, Li Xian, and his other friends that he was heading to White Cloud Mountain. And Sheng replied to tell Zhou when to be careful before he didn't say anything else. After Li Xian heard about White Cloud Mountain, he expressed his desire to head to White Cloud Mountain with Zhou. He had recently reached a bottleneck and hadn't been able to continue breaking through. He wanted to head out to change his mind. That afternoon, the two of them went to White Cloud Mountain together. As White Cloud Mountain was in Luoyang, the two of them rode their companion beasts and soon arrived at the foot of White Cloud Mountain. Wear this. Don't take it off no matter what. Otherwise, don't blame me if I see the Immortal Palace phenomenon. Zhou threw a balaclava to Li Xian. Why aren't you wearing a balaclava? Li Xian asked suspiciously when he saw Zhou prepare a balaclava. Ignoring the Immortal Palace phenomenon, even if deities and Buddhas really descend, I don't need to close my eyes to avoid them, Zhou said half-jokingly. You're awesome, all right? Li Xian gloomily put on the balaclava as Zhou led the way. The two of them climbed to the top of White Cloud Mountain. Zhou had the god's retreat life soul, so he was still looking forward to seeing the immortal palace phenomenon again. Due to his lack of strength the last time, he didn't see the fairy who had broken through the door. If she came out again, he could see it clearly. Unfortunately, there were no immortal palace phenomena along the way. When the two of them arrived at the entrance of Jade Emperor Peak, they didn't even see a dimensional creature, much less an immortal palace phenomenon. "Old Zhou, why aren't you walking?" Li Xian asked Zhou Wan, who was in front of him, when he couldn't see anything. Jade Emperor Peak is up ahead. After the door ahead, there's a terrifying taboo power inside. Even a mythical creature will explode and die in a short period of time if it enters. I cultivate an essence energy art that can withstand that taboo power. Furthermore, I need to cultivate inside, so don't come in, Zhou said to Li Xian. You've already said it before. I'm here for the taboo power on Jade Emperor Peak. Just enter by yourself. Don't worry about me. As Li Xian spoke, he summoned his life soul. A black carapace enveloped his body as a black, evil aura arose from it. He looked evil and powerful, completely different from Li Xian's usual demeanor. Chapter 594. Don't mess around. The taboo power here is too strong. It'll really kill you, Zhou said. I'm just afraid it's not strong enough, Li Xian said as he stepped onto the stone steps of Jade Emperor Peak. Just as he walked in, the carapace on his body crackled. A large number of cracks appeared on it, and blood flowed out. In the next second, Li Xian had already leaped out. When he landed, most of his carapace had shattered. Only a few pieces were left hanging on his body. His body was covered in blood, and wounds were everywhere. It was as though he had just been fished out of a pool of blood. Are you all right? Zhou hurriedly went over to check on Li Xian's injuries. They were shocking. He could see bone-deep wounds everywhere. I'm fine. It's really strong. This is the place. This is my cultivation ground. Li Xian struggled to get up. The injuries on his body were healing at a discernible speed. Even the shattered carapace was rapidly growing back amidst the black-gray flames. In just a moment, Li Xian's injuries and carapace had completely recovered. It was as though he had never been injured. Don't worry about me. Do what you need to do. As Li Xian spoke, he rushed into Jade Emperor Peak again. In the next second, Zhou saw him fall out covered in blood again. Seeing that he was fine, Zhou walked into Jade Emperor Peak himself. With God's retreat absorbing the taboo power and protecting his body, he naturally wouldn't be as miserable as Li Xian. Not daring to touch the two demon suppression beasts, Zhou sat on the stone steps and gamed. He allowed the Jade Infant to absorb the taboo power on Jade Emperor Peak and slowly become stronger. Ah, bam, ah, bam. On Jade Emperor Peak, there would be screams and the sound of someone falling. Even Zhou was somewhat surprised by Li Xian's perseverance. Although his recovery ability was extremely strong and being injured wasn't a big deal to him, such an injury would definitely cause Li Xian's body immense pain. To endure such pain time and time again, he had to seek out his own injuries. This required immense willpower. Not everyone could persevere through a masochistic form of growth. However, the effects of Li Xian's actions were very obvious. Every time his body and carapace were repaired, he would last a little longer on Jade Emperor Peak. It was obvious that he was becoming stronger. Seeing that Li Xian was fine, Zhou began his quest. This time, he went straight to the Qiongqi Temple. He had an idea that he might be able to kill Qiongqi without using the bright torch vision world, but he didn't know if it would work. When he arrived outside the Qiongqi Temple, Zhou wasn't in a hurry to enter. Instead, he summoned Torch Dragon, Golden Battle God Halberd, and Six-Winged Guardian Dragon. Following that, Zhou summoned Explosive Fiend Man and got him to use Torch Dragon, Golden Battle God Halberd, and Six-Winged Guardian Dragon as targets. Explosive Fiend Man first walked in front of the Six-Winged Guardian Dragon and extended his palm to press on its stomach. Zhou watched from the side as the armor on Explosive Fiend Man lit up. It was as though a red stream of light was flowing through the connecting tube before finally flowing into Explosive Fiend Man's palm. Red light patterns immediately appeared on the six-winged guardian dragon's stomach. They were like circuit boards that constantly spread across the six-winged guardian dragon's body. The light patterns spread very slowly. 2 hours later, the red light patterns on the six-winged guardian dragon's body only occupied one of its legs. Explosive Fiend Man is only at the mortal stage. Its essence energy is too limited, so there's no way to quickly release Time Blast. All I could do is slowly. In a real battle, it's impossible to use Explosive Fiend Man in battle. Zhou didn't have a good solution either. All he could do was wait patiently. After 4 days, Zhou couldn't wait any longer. Thankfully, most of the golden battle god halberd and six-winged guardian dragon's bodies were already covered in the red light patterns of Time Blast. Zhou didn't plan on waiting any longer and planned on letting them enter to give it a try. Pushing open the temple's door, Zhou ordered six-winged and golden battle god halberd to rush in. At the same time, he summoned the fiend-armored Tiger Soul General to restrain Xiongqi. When Xiongqi saw six-winged and golden battle god halberd rush in, it immediately charged forward ferociously. Just as its claws were about to touch the six-winged guardian dragon, six-winged and golden battle god halberd emitted a red glow. Boom! The entire Xiongqi temple shook as dust fell everywhere. Zhou and company had already hidden to the side. After the explosion ended, they hurriedly looked inside the temple. The temple was in a mess. There were corpses everywhere. There wasn't a single intact bone in the six-winged guardian dragon, and the golden battle god halberd had been reduced to pieces. However, it could still be seen that the explosion of their bodies wasn't sufficient. The energy utilization was very low. This might have something to do with Explosive Fiend Man's level being too low. As for Xiongqi, its head and chest were a bloody mess. Its legs were severed. Although it wasn't dead, it was severely injured. Zhou hurriedly got Torch Dragon to rush in and fight the heavily injured Xiongqi. If Torch Dragon didn't use Bright Torch Vision World, it wouldn't have been able to kill Xiongqi. However, now that Xiongqi was heavily injured and was restrained by the fiend-armored Tiger Soul General, Torch Dragon immediately gained the upper hand. After fighting bitterly for more than an hour, Zhulong finally killed Xiongqi in the temple. It was mainly because Xiongqi's speed was too fast. With his broken leg, Zhulong still spent a lot of effort to force it into a dead end and finally kill it. Ding! As Xiongqi collapsed, a crisp sound entered Zhou Wen's ears. A dimensional crystal dropped. Zhou Wen couldn't help but be somewhat disappointed. Most dimensional crystals were useless to him now. Even if it was a mythical essence energy skill crystal, he couldn't absorb it due to his lacking stats. He couldn't bring it out of the game, so he could only respawn. However, when Zhou Wen took a careful look at the crystal, he was somewhat surprised. He saw that below the gray crystal were the words, Evil Stat 34. Evil Stat? This was the first time Zhou Wen had heard of such a stat. He had never seen it before. However, since it was a rare stat, it would definitely be useful in the future. It should be useful when learning essence energy skills. He picked up the Evil Stat crystal, and after absorbing it, there was indeed an additional evil stat among the rare stats. Furthermore, it was as high as 34 points. Although this method can kill Xiongqi, Explosive Fiend Man's level is too low. It's really annoying to use it. I have to think of a way to raise his level. Zhou Wen had the urge to feed Explosive Fiend Man a longevity fruit. However, on careful thought, he eventually gave up. After all, Explosive Fiend Man wasn't picky with food. He could evolve by eating anything, but Demonic Neonate didn't eat anything other than the longevity fruit. There were only so many longevity fruits, and there would be none left after eating them. Zhou Wen still planned on leaving the longevity fruit for Demonic Neonate to eat. While Zhou Wen and Li Xian were cultivating on White Cloud Mountain, something major happened. Finally, someone issued a companion beast ranking challenge. I just want to game in peace. I just want to game in peace. Chapter 595. The companion beast that was challenged wasn't the first-ranked primordial sword immortal, but the frost giant that had been squeezed to 16th place. A companion beast named Deep Frost Behemoth appeared on the cube screen. It looked like a huge octopus and was ice blue in color. It was on a huge cube platform. The cube was surrounded by the void, so it didn't look like a city. On the far right side of the screen, a ranking appeared. The 16th Frost Giant's name kept flashing as an alarm sounded. Behind the Frost Giant's name was a 72-hour countdown. One could roughly guess that it was the time for the Frost Giant's owner to consider accepting the challenge. If the countdown ended and the Frost Giant's owner still didn't accept the challenge, it would probably be judged to have lost. Everyone was discussing if the Frost Giant would accept the challenge. However, there was soon an answer to this question. The alarm stopped, and the Frost Giant's name lit up completely. Then, the ranking vanished. The Frost Giant also appeared on the cube where the Deep Frost Behemoth was and looked at it. The Frost Giant had icy blue skin. Its head, shoulders, and waist were covered in frost iron armor. It also had a huge frost iron axe in its hand. Although the Frost Giant was already huge, it still appeared a little short in front of the Deep Frost Behemoth. After all, they were companion beasts, so there was no need for any unnecessary communication. The Frost Giant roared and cleaved at the Deep Frost Behemoth with the axe in its hand. The power of ice tore out of the axe, forming a huge ice mark that spread to the Deep Frost Behemoth's body. The Deep Frost Behemoth's tentacles danced, bringing with them frost as they shattered the ice mark. The two huge monsters clashed intensely on the cube platform, as they were both ice elemental companion beasts, and they had won through brute force. The two terrifying mythical companion beasts fought passionately. Every time they clashed, frost fragments would fly everywhere like fireworks formed from frost. The two companion beasts were evenly matched. They used all sorts of ice elemental skills, but both of them had high resistance to the cold. Their bodies were extremely powerful, so they only suffered some minor injuries. Neither of them could do a thing to the other. The Deep Freeze Behemoth finally couldn't help but attack first. It raised its huge tentacles, which had dark blue suction cups on them. The suction cups lit up together and shot out rays of freezing light towards the Frost Giant. The Frost Giant didn't back down. It raised its giant axe above its head and swung it down fiercely. A river of frost roared out and collided with the Deep Freeze Behemoth's freezing light. The entire cube platform began to freeze due to the two terrifying cold forces. In just a moment, the Frost Giant and the Deep Sea Behemoth were wrapped in ice. The entire platform seemed to be covered by glaciers, and everything became still. Who won? The people who were watching the battle were full of questions. Now that the two mythical creatures were frozen in ice, it was difficult to determine the victor. Suddenly, cracks appeared on the ice. Moments later, the huge ice shattered and the Frost Giant broke out of it. With a huge axe in hand, it roared and slashed at the still frozen Deep Freeze Behemoth. Just as everyone was extremely excited, thinking that they were about to see the scene of a mythical companion beast being killed again, the Deep Freeze Behemoth's body suddenly transformed into a stream of light and vanished. It seemed to have teleported away from the cube platform. The first companion beast challenge ended in failure. The Deep Freeze Behemoth failed to obtain a ranking, but this battle made many people realize something. It turned out that the challenge didn't have to be fought to the death. One could even admit defeat and withdraw. This made many people think of something. Many companion beasts might not have the right to snatch first place, but they could challenge the mythical companion beasts of opposing factions to figure out the other party's strength. It would be easier to think of a way to deal with them in the future. This was especially so for the Federation and overseas factions who were enemies. There was very little intelligence overseas, and the Federation's knowledge of their companion beasts was very limited. Taking this opportunity, it might be time to understand the abilities of the companion beasts overseas. Ever since this time, there had been more companion beast challenges. The battles of all sorts of top-notch companion beasts were a visual feast for ordinary people. It allowed many people who might never come into contact with mythical companion beasts their entire lives to witness the strength and terror of mythical companion beasts. The challenges weren't limited to companion beasts that weren't ranked. Companion beasts on the ranking could also challenge each other. However, they could only challenge high-level companion beasts at lower levels. They couldn't go against the flow. During the challenge, one only needed to find a cube and inject essence energy like when they were on a ranking. They would be teleported to a black cube in the void. The black cube was extremely huge. Fighting on it wouldn't affect anyone or the city. After the battle ended, one would be teleported back to the cube they were originally at. During the battle, the owner could also choose to withdraw their companion beast. Withdrawing was equivalent to admitting defeat. The cube's initial ranking was only a comprehensive judgment of the companion beast stats, skills, life providences, life souls, and wheel of destiny. However, it wasn't completely accurate, nor did it represent actual combat strength. Ever since the challenges began, there had been many examples of companion beasts at the bottom of the rankings defeating companion beasts at the top. The overall combat strength ranking didn't mean actual combat strength. However, the challenges in the beginning were basically low-ranked challenges. The top 10 companion beasts hadn't been challenged. However, in just a few days, this rule was broken. A companion beast that had never been on the ranking or heard of had actually challenged Primordial Sword Immortal, who was ranked first. This battle attracted the attention of the entire Federation and overseas. To be ranked first, even if it was just the judgment of the cube, Primordial Sword Immortal's strength wasn't to be underestimated. From the looks of it, someone finally can't help but want to probe Primordial Sword Immortal. Do you think that Dark Demon Snake is from the Federation or overseas? And Tianzua asked and Sheng as he watched the video broadcast. It's possible, but I think it's more likely overseas, and Sheng replied. Why? And Tianzua asked with interest. Although we haven't found out who Primordial Sword Immortal's owner is, based on Primordial Sword Immortal's appearance and other aspects, the possibility of it being a companion beast from the Federation is very high. Logically speaking, the overseas factions should be in a hurry to understand its abilities, and Sheng answered. That makes sense. Then, let's see how much strength that Darkness Fiend Snake can force out of Primordial Sword Immortal. And Tianzua's gaze landed on the screen again. So Gu. Chapter 596. All the factions that had designs on the divine fruit were paying close attention to this battle. If they wanted to obtain the right to pluck the divine fruit, they had to pass the obstacle of Primordial Sword Immortal. However, no one knew what abilities Primordial Sword Immortal had to obtain such an evaluation from the cube. It had always been ranked first, and no companion beast could pose a threat to it. Even a powerful mythical companion beast like Death of the Underworld could only be inferior to it. The Federation knew Death of the Underworld rather well. It was considered one of the top companion beasts among the 6 families. Its strength was extremely terrifying. Dark Demon Snake was a gigantic snake. At that moment, it was coiled on the cube's platform, waiting for Primordial Sword Immortal to accept the challenge. Thankfully, Primordial Sword Immortal didn't make the spectators wait too long before accepting the challenge. With a flash of a sword beam, an ancient stone sword with a sheath appeared on the cube's platform. Primordial Sword Immortal was actually just a stone sword. There was no immortal existence, so it was unknown why it was called a sword immortal and not an immortal sword. The stone sword was grayish-white in color. The scabbard and hilt were carved from ancient gray stone. Only the guard was embedded with a red gem. As no one had seen it unsheath, they didn't know what the sword looked like inside. When Dark Demon Snake saw Primordial Sword Immortal appear, it didn't have any doubts as it used its strongest strength. Dark Demon Snake's owner clearly knew that Dark Demon Snake was no match for Primordial Sword Immortal. He only wanted to force out Primordial Sword Immortal's abilities as much as possible. Dark Demon Snake opened its mouth and spat out a surging dark demonic tide that drowned the cube's platform like a tidal wave. Once one fell into it, they would be demonized by the dark demonic tide. Primordial Sword Immortal only floated there quietly. Just as it was about to be drowned by the dark demonic tide, the red gem on its guard suddenly lit up. A red sword light shot out from the ruby and instantly pierced through the Dark Demon Snake's head, killing it instantly. It didn't even have the chance to admit defeat. The spectators looked at each other. Although they knew that Primordial Sword Immortal would definitely win, they never expected it to win so easily. It didn't even have to unsheath its sword. Who is Primordial Sword Immortal's owner? We have to find out no matter what. Senator Cape stared at Primordial Sword Immortal and gave the order. The other great families, and even those from overseas, issued the same order. On the ranking, Primordial Sword Immortal was indeed very strong. Even though they hadn't seen Primordial Sword Immortal's true strength, just that strike alone was enough to make them feel fear. Even the 6 families did not have absolute confidence in defeating Primordial Sword Immortal on the stage. Even if they could defeat it, they would probably have to pay a huge price. However, it would be different if he could find Primordial Sword Immortal's owner. No matter how strong a companion beast was, its owner was at most at the epic stage. Dealing with an epic human was naturally much easier than dealing with a terrifying Primordial Sword Immortal. The rules in the arena were rigid, but in reality, there were many ways to win. It was not necessary to defeat Primordial Sword Immortal. Zhou Wan and Li Xian had no idea what had happened on White Cloud Mountain. Over the past few days, they had been training themselves with all their might. The Jade Infant absorbed a lot of taboo power and did change in the beginning. The treasure glow on its body became stronger and stronger, but in less than 2 days, it didn't change much when it absorbed the taboo power again. From the looks of it, the taboo power here was useless against the Jade Infant. Zhou Wan had no choice but to activate the Demon Suppression Stone Beast and use its power to stimulate the Jade Infant to continue evolving. In the end, this move was really useful. However, this way, Zhou Wan was about the same as Li Xian. Li Xian was injured every time he entered Jade Emperor Peak. As for Zhou Wan, every time he approached the Demon Suppression Stone Beast, the Jade Infant would swell to the point of exploding. It needed to rest for half a day before the Jade Infant could completely digest the powerful taboo power it had absorbed. Zhou Wan continued grinding while the Jade Infant was digesting the taboo power. Explosive Fiend Man took too long to use Time Blast. With so much time, Zhou Wan might as well grind Medusa a few more times. After grinding for so long, he still hadn't obtained a Medusa companion egg. He had obtained quite a number of Essence Energy Skill Crystals, but his stats were insufficient. He couldn't absorb them at all, so he could only respawn. Ding! When Zhou Wan went to grind the Golden Battle God Halberd again, another Golden Battle God Halberd companion egg dropped. Its stats and skills were about the same as the first Golden Battle God Halberd. There wasn't much difference. With the second Golden Battle God Halberd, Zhou Wan held one while the other attacked automatically. Killing mythical creatures became much easier and faster. However, Zhou Wan felt that the 2 Golden Battle God Halberds were a little repetitive. If only I could fuse them. Zhou Wan took a look and realized that the Golden Battle God Halberd could indeed be fused. However, its compatibility with ordinary epic companion beasts wasn't very high. For the time being, there weren't any good choices for fusion, so Zhou Wan had no choice but to dismiss the thought. After grinding the rare dimensional creatures, Zhou Wan went to Deer, Terra's Pavilion. With the 4 mythical companion beasts, even without using Bright Torch Vision World, he could storm his way to Deer, Terra's Pavilion. Just as he was about to kill the 6 mythical fox demons, he suddenly felt a glow appear in front of him. He looked up and saw the scene of a Jade Immortal Palace appear above the sea of clouds. Immortal Palace Phenomenon. Li Xian, quickly close your eyes, Zhou Wan hurriedly reminded Li Xian. As he hadn't discovered the Immortal Palace Phenomenon over the past few days, Li Xian usually didn't wear a balaclava. Thankfully, Li Xian knew that the Immortal Palace Phenomenon was dangerous, so he usually didn't look at the sky. He only looked in the direction of Jade Emperor Peak. At that moment, he was recovering from his injuries and had his eyes closed. When Li Xian heard that, he hurriedly took out a balaclava and put it on his head to prevent himself from accidentally seeing the Immortal Palace Phenomenon. Zhou Wan naturally wasn't afraid of the phenomenon as he stared at the pavilions in the clouds. There were also many fairies surrounding them. However, The immortal palace he saw this time seemed somewhat different from the one he had seen previously. He didn't see the palace from before, nor did he see the fairies that had broken out of the door. Just as Zhou was feeling disappointed, he suddenly saw a strange scene appear in the immortal palace phenomenon. He saw two beams of light, one green and one purple, pass through the immortal palace phenomenon like two rainbows. They constantly entangled, circled, and danced. Zhou carefully looked at the two beams of light, but he couldn't see them clearly. All he could see were streams of light dancing. At the same time, two inexplicable pressures made his heart tremble. He felt as though his body would be penetrated by the two beams of light at any moment. Chapter 597. Two streams of light, one azure and one purple, danced in the immortal palace. Even the fairies and immortal children dodged, afraid that they wouldn't be able to avoid them in time. Instantly, there was chaos. Even the jade buildings cracked when the two streams of light touched them. Zhou couldn't see what was inside the two streams of light, but just from their auras, he could tell that they were indestructible. It was as though everything in the world would be mercilessly sliced apart if they stood in front of them. Thankfully, Zhou's willpower was extremely firm. Otherwise, just the aura of the purple and azure light would have left him terrified. Just as he was wondering what the purple and azure light were, he suddenly saw the two beams of light that were originally entangled separate. The azure light landed on the top of a jade pavilion, while the purple light landed on a small building. Only then did Zhou see clearly that the azure light was an azure bird, while the purple light was a purple bird. The two birds looked somewhat similar. They had long feathers and a phoenix tail. Their bodies suffused an immortal glow, making them look extremely beautiful. Zhou didn't recognize what birds they were, but at the instant they spread their wings and took off again, Zhou saw the way they took off. He immediately found it extremely stunning. All of this happened in an instant. Zhou could only see their postures when they took off. After they took off, he couldn't see their figures clearly anymore. All he could see were two streams of light, one blue and one purple, flying around the immortal palace. After watching for a while, the immortal palace phenomenon vanished. However, the way the two birds took off was imprinted in Zhou's mind. He couldn't get out of his mind. "Old Zhou, what's in that phenomenon? Tell me." Li Xian couldn't see it, but he was somewhat tempted, so he asked Zhou. "In the phenomenon is an immortal palace with pavilions and buildings. Fairies and immortal children are flying in them. There are also two birds. One is azure, and the other is purple." Zhou gave a rough description. After the phenomenon, Zhou kept pondering over the flying postures of the two birds. He had a nagging feeling that their postures were very different from the flying postures of fairies. They were two completely different styles. I wonder if I can fuse the flying postures of those two birds into my movement technique. Unfortunately, I only saw their takeoff postures. There's too little information for reference. As Zhou was pondering, he felt a strong thought transmit to him. Zhou was delighted when he sensed the thought. He hurriedly looked at the chaos space and saw that Tyrant Behemoth had finally completed its evolution. It had already broken out of its shell. A terrifying beast the size of a mountain stood in the primal chaos space. Its body was like black iron, and it had two horns on its head. Its tail was like a giant whip, and its fingers were like iron hooks. The motorcycle that Zhou had placed in the chaos space was as tiny as an ant in front of the behemoth. Zhou couldn't estimate how big it was. Zhou was naturally happy that Tyrant Behemoth had advanced to the mythical stage, but this left him in a dilemma. Where should he put such a huge companion beast? It was fine inside the primal chaos space, but if it came out, most likely this Jade Emperor Peak would not be able to contain its body. Just as Zhou was in a dilemma, he saw Tyrant Behemoth's body slowly shrink. In just a moment, it went from a mountain-like behemoth to about 3 meters tall. It can actually become smaller? Zhou was overjoyed as he summoned Tyrant Behemoth back to his body and entered the game to check its information. Tyrant Behemoth, mythical, evolvable, life providence, immense strength, life, soul, violent crown wheel of destiny, absolute strength, 1 speed, 1 constitution, 1 essence energy, 1 talent skill, mountain devouring companion form. Boxing glove tyrant behemoth stats were very good. Just like Torch Dragon, they had reached the maximum of 1 point. The other aspects were the same as before its evolution. However, after advancing to the mythical stage, he had gained the wheel of life soul, absolute strength. Zhou had only learned that the effects of strength were mutual, but he didn't know what absolute strength was. He carefully checked absolute strength's introduction. Absolute strength, a miracle that can crush everything with strength. To what extent can one's strength crush everything? Zhou activated the game dungeon. Coincidentally, he had been in front of Deer Terrace Pavilion previously. Zhou summoned Tyrant Behemoth to see how strong its Wheel of Destiny was. The blood-colored avatar hid outside with 6-winged Torch Dragon and the 2 golden battle god halberds by its side. However, it didn't let them enter the ancient building. Only Tyrant Behemoth rushed in. When Tyrant Behemoth entered the ancient building, it immediately alarmed the 6 Fox Immortals. One of the colorful Fox Immortals shot out a colorful beam of light that slashed at Tyrant Behemoth. However, Tyrant Behemoth didn't attack. All it did was open its mouth and bite, sucking the colorful light into its stomach as though it was drinking cold water. Holy *T, this mythical mountain-devouring skill is a little powerful. It can even devour mythical essence energy skills. Zhou was delighted. The 6 Fox Immortals attacked Tyrant Behemoth together. Tyrant Behemoth opened its mouth and swallowed all sorts of essence energy skills. It was domineering, violent, and unreasonable. The 6 Fox Immortals weren't stupid either. They attacked Tyrant Behemoth from different directions. Tyrant Behemoth only had 1 mouth, so it immediately couldn't handle it. All sorts of colorful lights struck Tyrant Behemoth's body. Tyrant Behemoth roared as a crown appeared on its head. Its physique immediately increased as it used its body to block the colorful lights that struck its body. The Fox Immortal's attacks could only leave shallow wounds on its body. However, the Fox Immortals were good at movement techniques and illusions. Tyrant Behemoth's speed and strength were much stronger than theirs, but it couldn't hit them every time. Often, a fierce claw strike only hit their illusions. In its rage, Behemoth finally used its Wheel of Destiny. A black light appeared on Tyrant Behemoth's body as though all light was absorbed when it landed on it. Boom! The floor beneath Behemoth's feet collapsed. It wasn't just the floor that collapsed. Even space seemed to be crushed by Behemoth's strength, producing a spatial collapse vortex. Everything around it flew towards Behemoth. Behemoth was like a black hole that attracted everything around it. The 6 Fox Immortals were no exception. They struggled to escape, but the powerful suction force made it difficult for them to move. Tyrant Behemoth charged over and punched them one by one. In a moment, it smashed the 6 Fox Immortals to pieces. The 6 Fox Immortals counterattacked with all their might, but when they landed on Tyrant Behemoth's body, it was useless. It was no different from scratching an itch. As for Tyrant Behemoth, a punch landed on them and shattered their bodies. Their strength wasn't on the same level. How powerful! It's almost a complete massacre to fight 6 alone. Zhou was overjoyed. With Tyrant Behemoth, he didn't have to go through so much trouble to kill Qianqi. Chapter 598. Just as Zhou was about to get Tyrant Behemoth to go up to the 2nd and 3rd floors and kill the 9-headed pheasant and jade Peepa spirits inside. Under absolute strength, Tyrant Behemoth completely ignored their attacks. All sorts of sound waves struck Tyrant Behemoth's body, but it didn't hurt at all. As for them, they could only use their movement techniques and speed to deal with Tyrant Behemoth. Otherwise, they would die from a single punch. What was terrifying was that absolute strength caused space to collapse, producing a suction force similar to gravity. It hindered their movement techniques and speed, preventing them from lasting long before they were killed by Tyrant Behemoth. Tyrant Behemoth alone penetrated the 3-story ancient building. Before this, only Torch Dragon could do it. Zhou was excited. Just as he was about to take Tyrant Behemoth to Zhuolu's underground temple to see if it could kill Qiongqi, he realized that Tyrant Behemoth's absolute strength couldn't be used. What a scam. Absolute strength has a time limit. Zhou was somewhat depressed. However, on second thought, it made sense. It was impossible for such an invincible power to have no limits. Otherwise, wouldn't Tyrant Behemoth really be invincible? As Zhou grinded dungeons, he waited for Tyrant Behemoth's absolute strength to recover. He waited for 24 hours before he could use absolute strength again, charging for 24 hours and using it for half an hour. It's a little short, but it's invincible. Zhou was satisfied. Half an hour of invincibility should be enough for him to do many things. Zhou was in high spirits as he led Tyrant Behemoth and the other mythical companion beasts into Zhuolu's underground temple. When he arrived at the Aoyin stone statue, for some reason, Zhou planned on getting Tyrant Behemoth to kill Torch Dragon, which is stronger, absolute strength, or bright torch vision world. Zhou got Tyrant Behemoth to use absolute strength before rushing into the Torch Dragon temple. The outcome was without any suspense. Tyrant Behemoth was directly reflected in the vision world. Absolute strength couldn't protect its body. Tyrant Behemoth's strength can even crush space. Can it distort Torch Dragon's gaze? Zhou had no choice but to use his previous method to deal with Torch Dragon. It wasn't easy for him to kill Torch Dragon Youngling, but he didn't drop anything. Primordial Sword Immortal remained first on the rankings with absolute dominance. Ever since the Dark Demon Snake was killed by it, 2 more mythical companion beasts challenged it, but the outcome was the same. They failed to force the stone sword out of its scabbard. Just the sword beam and the ruby was too much for them. However, the companion beasts that challenged Primordial Sword Immortal survived. They weren't killed like the Dark Demon Snake. Their owners were already prepared. It was naturally a good thing to survive, but to not even have the right to make Primordial Sword Immortal unsheathe its scabbard made many people who wanted to vie for first place secretly frown. Unless a top mythical creature was sent to fight it, it would be very difficult to figure out Primordial Sword Immortal's strength. However, up to now, no one was willing to expose their top combat strength and fight Primordial Sword Immortal to the death. Everyone was watching. During this period, a companion beast challenged the 6-winged guardian dragon. But as Zhou was on White Cloud Mountain, he didn't have the chance to see the cube or the information about being challenged. Therefore, after 72 hours, the 6-winged guardian dragon was automatically judged to have admitted defeat and given up its original spot. And Sheng had also sent a message to Zhou, but because there was no signal on White Cloud Mountain, Zhou didn't receive it. I finally succeeded. Half a month later, on White Cloud Mountain's Jade Emperor Peak, Li Xian laughed excitedly. His body stood on the stone steps as the carapace on his body shattered and healed. The speed at which he healed was even faster than the speed at which it shattered. The taboo power in Jade Emperor Peak couldn't kill Li Xian. Old Li, your self-healing powers are pretty good. It's practically an undying body, Zhou exclaimed. He was indeed somewhat envious of Li Xian's self-healing abilities. Although the small perfection of wisdom was also a constitution enhancement, it was very different from the typical constitution enhancement. In terms of self-healing, it was much worse than Li Xian's. It's strong enough, but it really King hurts. Li Xian retreated from Jade Emperor Peak and said with a grimace, "Wounds could heal, but it was impossible to eliminate the pain when injured. Old Zhou, I have to go back first. Do you want to go back with me?" Li Xian said to Zhou, "I still need to cultivate here for a period of time. You can go back first. By the way, remember to prepare the things I asked you to buy for me. I'll be using them when I return in a few days." Zhou still remembered that the things the Arch wanted weren't too valuable, so there was no need to fall out with her because of this. Furthermore, Zhou was very interested in the Thearch's pet skill Insight Fluid. Typically, companion beasts that dropped wouldn't have all their skills, especially mythical pets. Most mythical creatures had many skills, but the companion eggs that dropped typically only had 4 skills. If the pet skill insight fluid was useful, it might allow mythical companion beasts to have all their skills. Just like the 6-winged guardian dragon, it lacked several skills. If it could comprehend those skills, its combat strength could increase a little. I got someone from the purchasing department to buy them. They should be almost done now. I'll go back and take a look. If there's anything missing, get them to quickly prepare it. I'll head back first. Li Xian couldn't wait to return home. Zhou sent him down White Cloud Mountain before returning to Jade Emperor Peak. However, just as he walked to the door of Jade Emperor Peak, he looked up and his body trembled. At the end of the stone steps of Jade Emperor Peak stood a white-robed, white-haired man. He stood in front of the stone statue of demon suppression and smiled at Zhou. "Teacher," Zhou called out, but he didn't know what to say. "I've implicated all of you, but you're still willing to call me teacher. It makes me feel ashamed," Wang Mingyuan said with a sigh. "You taught me before, so it's only right for me to call you teacher." Zhou looked at Wang Mingyuan and continued, "Teacher, may I ask why you used the divine fruit to start the ranking battle? Would you believe me if I said that I only wanted to give the fruit away?" Wang Mingyuan said to Zhou with a faint smile. Zhou didn't say a word, but Wang Mingyuan laughed. "You're still the same as before. You haven't changed at all. You're so stubborn and don't know how to hide your heart. Teacher, you didn't come here just to tell me this, right?" Zhou asked. "I only came here to retrieve something. I never expected to meet you. Since we're fated to meet again and you're still willing to call me teacher, I'll tell you a secret." Wang Mingyuan pointed at his feet and said, "There's a demon at the foot of the mountain that can help you break through to the mythical stage. So go." Chapter 599. What's a demon? Zhou asked in puzzlement. "It's just a title. You can also call him a guardian," Wang Mingyuan answered. "Do you want me to advance to the mythical stage with guardian spirit casting like you?" Zhou asked Wang Mingyuan. He actually wanted to know if Wang Mingyuan had used spirit casting to advance to the mythical stage. "Did Zia give you spirit casting?" Wang Mingyuan frowned slightly. "Yes." Zhou nodded. Wang Mingyuan sighed and said, "The human body is congenitally deficient. If you want to advance to the mythical stage, you have to think of a way to make up for it. Now, there are 2 feasible paths. The first is to contract a guardian and use the guardian's body to advance to the mythical stage to continue down the path. This path may seem simple, but in fact, the requirements are extremely high. If one doesn't have a compatible physique and talent with a guardian, it will be extremely difficult to obtain the guardian's recognition. Even if one obtains its recognition, they will be abandoned if they can't meet the guardian's requirements in future battles. Choosing this path is equivalent to boarding a train that can't be stopped. There's no possibility of retreating. Once you fail, there will be nothing left. You will fall straight to the bottom. After a pause, Wang Mingyuan continued, "The second path is spirit casting. You can use the bodies of powerful creatures to make up for your shortcomings. You can choose mythical creatures or guardians as the target of spirit casting. Both have their advantages and disadvantages, but guardians are closer to human form. After spirit casting, your body will still maintain most of its human form, but that's all." What Wang Mingyuan said was similar to Zhou's previous guess. He couldn't help but ask, can humans really not rely on their own bodies to advance to the mythical stage? It's difficult. Wang Mingyuan looked at the churning sea of clouds outside the mountain and said, "Everything has its limits. Just like many human sports before the dimensional storms, such as the 100-meter sprint. It was rather easy to improve in the beginning, but when this result reached about 10 seconds, the breakthrough of the limit became negligible. This is because 10 seconds is almost the limit of humans. What humans are facing now is the same problem. If the physical limit of humans is 10, then the physical limit needed to advance to the mythical stage is 100. No matter how hard humans work, they will only hover around 10. It's impossible for them to reach 100. This is a congenital limit. If we don't rely on external forces, it's very difficult to resolve. With that said, without waiting for Zhou to say anything, Wang Mingyuan said, I should leave. This demon at the foot of the mountain is a guardian. If you want to contract it, you can use this method. Even if your physique and talent isn't compatible with him, he will contract you. He won. Furthermore, he won't dare to betray you. Wang Mingyuan extended his hand and flicked a piece of paper at Zhou. Zhou caught it, and when he looked at Wang Mingyuan again, he saw that he had already turned around and walked into a huge void door. After Wang Mingyuan walked in, the void door closed with a loud bang. The Jade Emperor Peak returned to normal. The two demon suppression stone beasts were empty, as though there had never been anyone there. Zhou stared blankly for a while before retracting his gaze and looking at the note in his hand. The content was unbelievable. If it were written by someone else, Zhou definitely wouldn't believe it. However, it was Wang Mingyuan who wrote it, so it was naturally a different story. Should I get a try? Zhou looked at the note with an odd expression. This was because the method on the note was somewhat inconceivable. My god's retreat hasn't advanced to a perfect body, so I can't enter the demon suppression palace. If I want to enter, I can only try according to this method. Zhou decided to give it a try at night. Even if he didn't succeed, you wouldn't lose anything. There was still a long time before sunset. Zhou sat on the stone steps and thought about what Wang Mingyuan had said to him. Is there really no way to advance to the mythical stage with a human body? If it really doesn't work, which path should I choose? Spirit casting or contract? Zhou ultimately felt that he didn't want to choose either path. I'll advance Slaughterer to a perfect body first. It's still too early to consider those things. Zhou thought of the divine fruit again. Wang Mingyuan said that he only wanted to give the divine fruit away. Although his words might not be believable, if Wang Mingyuan wanted to harm him, there was no need for him to go through so much trouble to lie to him. Since Wang Mingyuan said that there are only two ways to advance to the mythical stage, that means that the divine fruit shouldn't be able to allow humans to advance to the mythical stage. In that case, the divine fruit should only be effective against companion beasts and dimensional creatures. Zhou felt that he might be able to give it a try and see if he could vie for the divine fruit. If he could really obtain the divine fruit, he could feed it to Banana Fairy or Explosive Fiend Man, especially Explosive Fiend Man. Once he advanced to the mythical stage, it would be of great help to Zhou. Even if the divine fruit is really a trap, on account of our teacher-student relationship in the past, teacher probably won't kill me, right? No matter how Zhou thought about it, he felt that the benefits of vying for the divine fruit outweighed the disadvantages. The crux of the matter was whether he could obtain first place and which companion beast would vie for first place. I wonder if Tyrant can deal with Primordial Immortal Sword. Time passed as Zhou pondered. The sun quickly set and the sky darkened. Let's give it a try and see if teacher's method is really useful. Zhou looked at the sky that was completely dark. A crescent moon emitted a faint glow in the sky. Looking at the two demon suppression stone beasts in front of the demon suppression hall, Zhou gritted his teeth and turned his back to them. Then he pressed his hands on the stone steps and stood upside down. Using his hands as his feet, Zhou walked to the door of the demon suppression hall upside down. Zhou felt somewhat uneasy as he looked at the two demon suppression stone beasts upside down. He didn't feel confident at all. His god's retreat was so powerful, but he was unable to bypass the demon suppression stone beasts and enter the hall. Yet, Wang Mingyuan said that he could enter by standing upside down. This was unbelievable. If this method wasn't suggested by Wang Mingyuan, Zhou wouldn't even have given it a try. It sounded like nonsense. Although Zhou was giving it a try, he still found it unbelievable that he could enter the demon suppression hall so easily. When he was about to activate the demon suppression stone beasts, the words demon suppression on the two demon suppression stone beasts' foreheads lit up again. It really doesn't work? Zhou's heart skipped a beat. However, to his surprise, although the words demon suppression on the foreheads of the two demon suppression stone beasts lit up, Zhou didn't feel the pressure on the Jade Infant increase. Will it really work? Zhou continued walking up with his head upside down. Indeed, he didn't feel the pressure from the words demon suppression. He reached the end of the stone steps and arrived in front of the demon suppression hall. Zhou still remembered the method on the note. He didn't use his feet to kick the door, nor did he use his hands to push it. Instead, he used his hands to support himself on the ground and slammed his head against the door. Clang! With a dull thud, Zhou felt dizzy as he saw stars. Chapter 600. What happened to slamming the door with all my might and opening it in one strike? Zhou gritted his teeth and didn't let himself fall to the ground. Then, he heard a series of cracking sounds as the door slowly rose and opened. Zhou suspected that there was no need for him to slam the door with all his might, like Wang Mingyuan had said. However, Zhou didn't have any evidence. After the door rose, Zhou saw the scene inside the hall. There were no statues of gods, nor were there tables. Inside the hall, there were many stone monuments. Every stone monument was engraved with many strange lines and patterns. He had no idea what they meant. Zhou stood outside the door and counted. Indeed, they were arranged in the same way as the note. Zhou alternated his hands as though he was walking. He followed the path Wang Mingyuan had pointed out and entered the stone monument array. When he passed by some stone monuments, Zhou pressed the stone monument with one hand on the ground. After circling the stone monument array for a while, he finally completed all the actions. The stone monument rotated, revealing a stone staircase that led underground. Zhou hurriedly entered the stone staircase and finally heaved a sigh of relief. When his feet landed on the ground, he returned to his normal state. As he sized up the stone staircase, he saw that the stone walls on both sides were engraved with patterns that Zhou didn't know what they meant. Most of them were simple lines and dots that were arranged in a certain way. He walked down the stone steps, and before long, the stone steps took a turn. It was still a stone staircase that led downwards, like the stairs of a building. He kept walking down, and after more than 100 stone steps, he still couldn't see the end. The patterns on the stone walls remained, but he had no idea what they were for. Just as Zhou suspected that the stone steps were endless, and that it was an endless loop, he saw that the stone steps below were somewhat different. The stone steps below had turned into a jade-like shape and were emitting a cold air. He stepped onto the jade steps and continued walking down. Before long, he reached the end. Below him was a room made of jade. In the middle of the room floated a black cocoon. There were many cracks on the cocoon's body. Wisps of black gas emitted from the cracks, but the black gas wasn't emitted. It was absorbed by the white rings on the black cocoon. There were a total of 7 rings on the black cocoon. They looked like they were made of jade and had mysterious incantations engraved on them. When Zhou looked at the black cocoon, he suddenly realized that there was a black eye staring at him from one of the cracks. "Human, do you want me to become your contractor?" When Zhou saw the eyes, he heard an ethereal voice coming from the black cocoon. "No," Zhou answered without hesitation. He could naturally tell that there was something wrong with the guardian inside the black cocoon. There were no mythical creatures protecting him here. Furthermore, the black cocoon was clearly imprisoned. This was completely different from the guardians he had seen before. "Human, don't you want great power? As long as you form a contract with me, you can obtain immense power and advance to the mythical stage." The voice from the black cocoon sounded again. "If you were really that strong, you wouldn't have been imprisoned here." Although Zhou said that, he thought to himself, who has the ability to imprison a guardian here? Was it human? I'm afraid humans don't have such powerful abilities. Upon hearing Zhou's words, the guardian inside the black cocoon seemed to turn irascible. Large amounts of black, demonic aura surged out from the cracks. As it had absorbed too much demonic aura, even the white jade bracelets had turned raven black. "Human, I'm the strongest guardian. No one can imprison me. I'm the one who imprisons myself." The black cocoon's voice sounded again. "Then why did you imprison yourself?" Zhou naturally didn't believe him. "You don't need to know the reason. You only need to know that after signing a contract with me, you will become the strongest human. In the future, you will become the strongest existence. That's enough." The power I'll give you is something you humans can't even dream of, the voice said again. I heard that signing a guardian requires a special physique and talent. Are you sure my physique and talent are what you need? Zhou asked again. The fact that you can come here proves that you have the qualifications to sign a contract with me, the guardian inside the cocoon said. You make it sound nice. You just want to find a random human to contract and escape first, Zhou said with a twitch of his lips. Human, it looks like you don't understand how great of an opportunity you will miss. The guardian inside the cocoon continued. Don't you desire strength? Don't you want to become the greatest hero of humanity? In the future, there will definitely be a terrifying battle in the human world. When the time comes, no one will be spared. Those below the mythical stage won't even have the right to struggle for survival. If you sign a contract with me, you still have a chance of survival. Otherwise, you can only wait for death. This is your chance to live. You don't have to be alarmist. I don't believe anything you say. Zhou looked at the black cocoon and asked, after talking for so long, I still don't know your name? Grim Demon, said the voice inside the black cocoon. Silly Demon? Zhou was slightly taken aback. The name sounded a little odd. Grim Demon clearly heard the mistake in Zhou's pronunciation. Demonic aura spewed out from the black cocoon as it said angrily, a demon born to kill. I'm Grim Demon. So it's Grim Demon. This name, domineering, although Zhou said that, he couldn't get the word silly demon out of his head due to his preconceived impression. Human, have you considered it? As long as you contract me, not only can you survive the terrifying battle, but you will also have the chance to defeat all the races in the world and become the strongest existence. Grim Demon continued. I've seen quite a number of guardians. They're nothing impressive. They're not as powerful as you say. Zhou wore a doubtful expression. There are experts among guardians too. Which guardians have you seen? Grim Demon didn't believe Zhou. I've seen a six-winged angel. He can open the door to heaven. He looks quite powerful, Zhou said. I can tear that birdman apart with one hand. It's not worth mentioning. After you sign a contract with me, defeating him will be as easy as flipping your hand, Grim Demon said disdainfully. Zhou thought to himself, keep bragging. After all, bragging isn't illegal. I can't prove it. However, Zhou didn't say that out loud. He continued, I've also seen a guardian named Fairy Burial. He looks quite powerful. Chapter 601. Grim Demon clearly paused for a moment before saying, Fairy Burial does have some ability, but he's not my match. I've also seen a guardian. Zhou described the guardian in Ant City. Grim Demon said coldly, I've never heard of such a guardian. I don't think he's that strong. He could be easily killed. You say you're powerful, but you can't prove it. How can I believe you? Zhou naturally didn't believe Grim Demon's bragging. He then asked, how do you classify the strength of guardians? You will naturally know after you contract me. Grim Demon didn't answer Zhou's question. Forget it. I see that the other guardians have mythical creatures protecting them. Only you are imprisoned here. It's obvious that you're not up to par. You might very well be the weakest guardian. I'll find another guardian. As Zhou spoke, he prepared to turn around and leave. Grim Demon was nearly angered to death by Zhou. He gritted his teeth and said, Human, after I leave, I'll naturally prove it to you and let you know how powerful I am. Forget it. I heard that a person can only contract one guardian. I still want to leave my contract opportunity to a stronger guardian. Even if it's not a top-notch guardian, it should at least be mid-level. You don't meet my requirements. Zhou shook his head. Zhou had no intention of contracting a guardian at all. He only came in to take a look. The method Wang Mingyuan had given him was to force Grim Demon to sign a special contract. That way, Grim Demon couldn't easily betray him like the other guardians. However, Zhou felt that such a contract wasn't too safe. Although the special contract prevented guardians from betraying him, guardians could still regain their freedom if their master died. If Grim Demon really had the intention to betray him, he could have killed him first before obtaining his freedom. The demonic aura in the black cocoon surged like a tidal wave. The 7 jade hoops were unable to completely block the demonic aura. The mysterious incantations and patterns on the walls of the jade room lit up. On the stone walls of the tunnel, all sorts of patterns lit up, suppressing the terrifying demonic aura and illuminating the entire mountain belly. Grim Demon was infuriated. He wished he could tear the human in front of him to pieces. He had never suffered such humiliation before. If he wasn't trapped here, even if Zhou Wen knelt down and begged him to sign a contract with him, he would still have to see if Zhou Wen's aptitude and talent were up to the mark. Now that he had lowered himself and taken the initiative to contract with Zhou Wen was still so picky. He said that he wanted it to be at least mid-tier. This nearly caused Killing Demon's soul to leave his body. If not for the suppression of the Demon Suppression Mountain, preventing him from using his power to harm Zhou Wen, he would have killed Zhou Wen first, even if he had to wait a few decades or a century to appease the anger in his heart. Zhou Wen couldn't help but be alarmed when he saw Grim Demon's might under his rage. This fellow isn't completely bragging. He might really be able to fight Fairy Burial. Don't be angry. If it wasn't because you are too weak, why would you be imprisoned here? Zhou Wen wanted to see if he could find out some secrets. These guardians seemed to come from different races. The dimensional races had created them and made them contract humans. It was unknown what their goals were. You don't need to know. If you don't want to contract, scram. Don't disturb my rest, Grim Demon said coldly. Wait, I just said that you were imprisoned here by humans. You didn't refute me. Could it be that you were really imprisoned here by us humans? Zhou Wen suddenly realized a problem. When he spoke just now, he had subconsciously used his words. However, from Grim Demon's point of view, he looked down on humans. When he heard Zhou Wen's words, he should have retorted. Zhou Wen waited for a while, but Grim Demon didn't say a word. There was no reaction from the black cocoon. It can't be. Was this fellow really imprisoned here by humans? Look at how silly he is. Could it be that he fell for a scheme of humans and was trapped here? The more Zhou Wen thought about it, the more he felt that he was right. However, after saying a few more words, Grim Demon didn't react at all. From the looks of it, he didn't plan on paying any more attention to him. Zhou Wen's hope of finding out the inside story wasn't dashed. Seeing that there was nothing else here, Zhou Wen had no choice but to retreat and return to Jade Emperor Peak. Unfortunately, I have too many secrets. Otherwise, contracting Grim Demon would be a good choice. That fellow's strength is indeed extraordinary. Zhou Wen only had this thought. He had so many secrets, so he definitely couldn't let a guardian with independent consciousness and behavior follow him. Zhou Wen used the power of demon suppression on Jade Emperor Peak to raise God's retreat. Occasionally, when he was free, he would run down to visit Grim Demon and attempt to chat with him, hoping to obtain more information. Unfortunately, after Grim Demon learned that he wasn't willing to contract, he ignored him. Occasionally, he would say a few words, but there were no secrets to speak of. During this period, Zhou Wen also discovered something. Indeed, the door to the Demon Suppression Hall didn't need to be slammed with all his might. All he needed to do was gently knock it open. Is it fun to scam me? Zhou Wen gritted his teeth, but there was nothing he could do. Now, Zhou Wen finally understood that none of Wang Mingyuan and his disciples were serious. He definitely couldn't believe their words. Zhou Wen had also tried entering the Demon Suppression Hall in-game. Wang Mingyuan's method was equally effective in-game. There were also black cocoons and Grim Demon below the game. However, Grim Demon in-game couldn't speak, so there was no way to communicate. Grim Demon, have you heard of a guardian with the word Tharch in their name? Zhou Wen had always suspected that the Tharch might be a guardian. Typical mythical creatures didn't seem to have as high an intelligence as the Tharch. There are naturally guardians with the name Tharch in their name, but compared to me, they are far inferior, Grim Demon said coldly. Zhou Wen had come many times, and Grim Demon was somewhat bored. He would chat with Zhou Wen in a lukewarm manner. Then are there any women among these guardians with the name Tharch in their name? Zhou Wen asked again. Of course, but even the strongest netherworld great empress isn't my match, Grim Demon said. Zhouwen was already used to Grim Demon's boastful personality, so he wasn't affected at all. He continued probing. I've been to Chess Mountain in the past and saw a guardian who calls herself the Arch. Do you know who she is? What kind of place is Chess Mountain? Grim Demon frowned. It's probably where ancient Chowga is. There's Deer Terrace Pavilion there. Zhouwen revealed some information about Chess Mountain. So Gu. Chapter 602. Grim Demon didn't react when he heard that. When he heard Zhouwen mention the wishing power, he said, I don't know. I've never heard of it. Zhouwen was somewhat disappointed. He originally imagined that he could obtain some information about the Arch, but he didn't find out anything. Zhouwen attempted to use the Jade Infant to resist the power of the demon suppression beast every day. As it absorbed a large amount of demon suppression power, the treasure glow on the Jade Infant's body became stronger and stronger. In the end, Zhouwen almost couldn't see the Jade Infant in the treasure glow. Now, the Jade Infant was almost able to fight the demon suppression beast. With the Jade Infant's strength, Zhouwen could already rush to the door of the demon suppression hall. But even so, the Jade Infant still failed to advance to the legendary perfect body. At that moment, the power of demon suppression had little effect on the Jade Infant. Zhouwen felt that there was no point in staying any longer. He planned on leaving White Cloud Mountain and returning to school. Grim Demon, I'm leaving. Let's meet again if fate wills it. Before Zhouwen left White Cloud Mountain, he greeted Grim Demon. Are you really not considering forming a contract with me? After a moment of silence, Grim Demon's voice sounded from the black cocoon. I have no intention of contracting a guardian for the time being, but perhaps I can help you find someone to be your contractor. Zhouwen felt that he should keep the goodies to himself. Since he wasn't willing to contract, he might as well find a friend who was willing. It was better than being contracted by an enemy. Although White Cloud Mountain was mysterious and ordinary people couldn't enter, with the passage of time, the secrets of the various dimensional zones would slowly be cracked. It was difficult to guarantee that no one would enter. Do you think I, Grim Demon, can be contracted by just anyone? Grim Demon said coldly. Don't worry. I'll definitely help you find an outstanding human. Zhouwen felt that he could return and ask Sheng or Li Xian if they wanted to contract a guardian. I'll take another step back. I can form an eternal contract with you, Grim Demon said after a moment of silence. At the same time, he explained what an eternal contract was. Zhouwen already knew what an eternal contract was. The contract Wang Mingyuan had gotten him to force Grim Demon to sign was an eternal contract. After signing such a contract, unless Zhouwen died, Grim Demon wouldn't be able to obtain freedom. I'm really sorry. I really don't plan on contracting a guardian at the moment. Zhouwen couldn't accept it if he didn't try advancing to the mythical stage by himself. Even though killing Fiend was a very good choice, Zhouwen still firmly gave up. In that case, can you do me a favor before you leave? Grim Demon said after some thought. What's the matter? Zhouwen asked. I have an essence energy art here. Help me take it out and find a human who can learn it to be my contractor. As a reward, I can promise to do 3 things for you after I leave. As long as it's within my capabilities, I can do anything, Grim Demon said. Sure. Zhouwen agreed. It didn't affect him much. I'll surface the essence energy art outside the cocoon. You have to memorize it word for word. With Grim Demon's voice, the demonic aura in the black cocoon surged and condensed into words outside the black cocoon. Zhouwen memorized the words one by one, but he was also careful. As he memorized them, he kept controlling his essence energy to prevent any accidents. Grim Demon's primordial energy art was just too long. It was like a scripture. Zhouwen memorized it for 2 to 3 hours before he finished reading it. Recite the essence energy art and see if you remember it wrongly, Grim Demon said. There's no need. Show me the essence energy art again. I'll compare it, Zhouwen said. All right. Grim Demon didn't insist as he showed the essence energy art again. Zhouwen looked at it for a while. It had been too long. When it was time to feed demonic neonate the longevity fruit, he summoned her and gave her a longevity fruit. The essence energy art on the black cocoon suddenly stopped moving. Zhou asked curiously, "Why aren't you continuing?" There was still no sound inside the black cocoon. The demonic aura seemed to freeze as it remained motionless. "Grim Demon, what are you doing?" Zhou frowned and asked again, but there was still no answer. Zhou suddenly realized that something was amiss. Grim Demon's abnormal actions seemed to have begun when he summoned demonic neonate. He glanced at demonic neonate, who was chewing on a longevity fruit, and then at the motionless black cocoon. Zhou pulled demonic neonate and pushed her body towards the black cocoon. Finally, the black cocoon reacted. Demonic aura spewed out from the black cocoon, but it didn't spray at Zhou and demonic neonate. Instead, it seemed to want to push the black cocoon away. Unfortunately, it was trapped by the 7 jade hoops and the entire mountain's demon suppression array. It couldn't move at all. "Don't come over." Grim Demon's voice finally sounded again. However, there was a hint of terror in his voice. Zhou was alarmed. Although demonic neonate is powerful, her strength is actually inferior to the 6-winged guardian dragon. Why is Grim Demon so afraid of her? "Grim Demon, didn't you claim to be the strongest guardian? Why are you so afraid now?" Zhou mocked. With Grim Demon's temper, he would definitely retort angrily if Zhou mocked him like this. However, this time, Grim Demon didn't retort and fell silent again. There's indeed something odd. Grim Demon is actually afraid of demonic neonate? What's on demonic neonate that's worth Grim Demon being afraid of? Zhou carefully sized up demonic neonate. He didn't let demonic neonate continue approaching the black cocoon. If Grim Demon was pretending to be afraid, wouldn't he be harming her if Zhou pushed demonic neonate over? Demonic neonate's strength in all aspects isn't enough to threaten Grim Demon. If there's really something that can make Grim Demon afraid, it's probably only her life providence, life soul, and wheel of destiny. The life providence and wheel of life soul don't seem to have anything to do with demons. Could it be that what Grim Demon is afraid of is the supreme, true demon life soul? Many thoughts flashed through Zhou's mind. The more he thought about it, the more likely it was. However, Zhou didn't have any intention of letting demonic neonate take the risk. He turned around and left with demonic neonate. He planned on letting demonic neonate approach the black cocooning game when he returned. As the number of mythical companion beasts around Zhou had increased recently, he rarely used demonic neonate in battle. He didn't try letting demonic neonate attack the black cocoon. Wait! To his surprise, just as Zhou was about to leave the Jade Room, Grim Demon's voice sounded again and stopped him. Could it be that Grim Demon really wants to trick demonic neonate over? Zhou became even more vigilant as he summoned demonic neonate back to prevent any accidents. Chapter 603. Please agree to sign a master-slave contract with me. Grim Demon's words left Zhou alarmed. What's a master-slave contract? Zhou learned about the 2 types of guardian contracts from Wang Mingyuan. One was a guardian contract. This type of contract was relatively equal. Both parties could terminate the contract at any time and had the right to abandon the other party. The second was an eternal contract. It could only be terminated when one party died. It was relatively fair, but guardians had unlimited lifespans. Therefore, typically, the human party died first before the contract could be terminated. I'm willing to sign the contract as a slave. My life and death are in Master's hands. Grim Demon explained the effects and methods of the master-slave contract in detail. After Zhou heard that, he felt that the contract was very good. Grim Demon's life and death were in his hands. Furthermore, if the master died, the guardian would die with him. It was perfect. With the master-slave contract, Zhou didn't have to consider any of his previous worries. It was great. Since you have made such a sincere request, I'll be too embarrassed not to agree. All right, I'll agree to be your master. Zhou agreed happily. Who wants you to be my master? I want to invite that Lord to be my master, Grim Demon immediately said. Zhou expression stiffened as he immediately understood what Grim Demon meant. He wanted to sign a master-slave contract with demonic neonate, not him. You want to sign a master-slave contract with my companion beast? Zhou asked the black cocoon. Yes, Grim Demon answered with certainty. Could it be that demonic neonate really had a great background when she was alive? Or is it because demonic neonate possesses the life soul of a supreme, true demon? Zhou summoned demonic neonate again and pointed at the black cocoon. Do you know what that is? Demonic neonate glanced at the black cocoon and shook her head. Her face was filled with confusion. He wants to be your guardian. Are you willing? Zhou asked again. Demonic neonate shook her head again with a blank expression. It was unknown if she knew what a guardian meant. As you can see, she's unwilling to take you in, Zhou said to the black cocoon. There was no sound from the black cocoon. Zhou walked out of the demon suppression hall with demonic neonate, but he didn't hear Grim Demon's voice again. What's different about demonic neonate that makes Grim Demon so reverent to the point of signing a master-slave contract? Zhou couldn't guess. Thankfully, he had the mysterious phone. He planned to bring demonic neonate into the game and see how the black cocoon would react. Outside Jade Emperor Peak, Zhou opened the Demon Suppression Mountain dungeon and brought demonic neonate into the Demon Suppression Hall before arriving in front of the black cocoon again. The black cocoon in-game wasn't as intelligent as Grim Demon in reality. No one said a word as Zhou attempted to get demonic neonate to approach the black cocoon. Demonic neonate carried the ancient sword and slowly walked to the side of the black cocoon. She extended a tiny hand and pressed it on the black cocoon. The demonic aura in the black cocoon immediately erupted, sending the demonic infant flying. Fortunately, the demonic infant seemed to have a high resistance to demonic aura, so she wasn't injured. Strange. Demonic neonate's strength isn't enough to fight Grim Demon at all. She can't even withstand the demonic aura she emits. Why does Grim Demon think so highly of her and even say that he's afraid of her? Zhou was momentarily unable to figure out the crux of the problem. However, demonic neonate was somewhat odd. After she came into contact with the black cocoon and demonic aura, she actually began to attack the black cocoon. She opened her mouth as though she wanted to bite the black cocoon. Although the demonic aura sent her retreating time and time again, the powerful demonic aura couldn't injure demonic neonate's body. However, demonic neonate's strength was still too weak, so she couldn't break through the demonic aura's defense. There's indeed a problem. Zhou pulled demonic neonate and summoned her into reality. He stared in her eyes and asked, "Why do you want to attack the black cocoon?" "Eat." Demonic neonate answered with a simple word. She didn't know many languages to begin with. Zhou had taught her for a long time, but she didn't know how to speak. It was already very rare for her to say a word this time. "You want to eat that black cocoon?" Zhou confirmed again. Demonic neonate didn't say a word this time and only nodded. Zhou immediately understood why Grim Demon had converged his demonic aura after demonic neonate came out and didn't dare move. He was afraid of attracting demonic neonate's attention. "Is there any benefit to eating the black cocoon?" Zhou asked again. Demonic neonate shook her head with a blank expression. Clearly, this was only her instinct. Even she didn't know what use eating the black cocoon or Grim Demon in the black cocoon had. "Do you know what contract means?" Zhou asked her again. Demonic neonate nodded slightly. From the looks of it, she knew what a contract was. Zhou's expression changed. There was indeed an opportunity in front of him, but he didn't know what would happen if a companion beast had a guardian. Logically speaking, demonic neonate is my companion beast. If Grim Demon is her slave guardian, it should be very easy to control Grim Demon, right? Zhou asked demonic neonate again. "If you sign a master-slave contract with the creature in the black cocoon, will it harm you?" Demonic neonate thought for a moment before shaking her head. If the initiative of the contract is completely in your hands, you can consider signing a master-slave contract with the guardian in the black cocoon. In that case, wouldn't his life be in your hands? If you want to eat him, You should be able to do so at any time, right? How about treating it as food reserves? Joan was only making a suggestion. He didn't know if this method was feasible. When demonic neonate heard that, she lowered her head as though she was in deep thought. After a while, she nodded and said, "Yes. Contract. Food reserves." Although demonic neonate's words weren't clear, Joan still understood what she meant. Overjoyed, he brought her into the demon suppression hall again. As he walked, Joan persuaded, "After we sign the contract, there's no rush to eat it. There's still many fruits here. Treat them as food reserves. We can eat them after the fruits are finished." Food reserves. I won't eat them. Demonic neonate thought seriously before nodding. Very good. How smart. Joan stroked demonic neonate's head and praised her. Soon, the two of them arrived at the spot where Grim Demon was suppressed. Joan went up and said to Grim Demon, "Grim Demon, I persuaded her for a long time. She finally agreed to contract with you, but it has to be a master-slave contract." "Of course," Grim Demon answered quickly. Grim Demon quickly answered. From his tone, it was as though what Joan said was nonsense. It was only right for him to sign a master-slave contract with demonic neonate. Joan originally wanted to tell demonic neonate how to use the master-slave contract and get her to be careful when contracting. If she felt that something was amiss, she could immediately stop the contract. However, to his surprise, demonic neonate seemed to be more familiar with contracts than him. She walked straight to the black cocoon and pressed her hand on it. "So go." Chapter 604. The black cocoon automatically cracked open, revealing a ghastly face formed from black smoke. Demonic neonate's tiny hand pressed on the ghastly face. The entire process was like the reverse of the Guardian contract. When the contract was completed, the entire black cocoon shattered. The 7 white jade hoops that bound the black cocoon fell and clanged to the ground. Grim Demon, who had escaped, was like a devil formed from black gas as it swept towards demonic neonate. Demonic neonate glared at him, and Grim Demon immediately stopped in midair, not daring to approach demonic neonate's body. Demonic neonate held the ancient sword in her arms in her hand. Grim Demon seemed somewhat unwilling, but he still flew towards the ancient sword and transformed into wisps of black gas that fused with the ancient sword. In the blink of an eye, the black gas formed by Grim Demon completely fused with the ancient sword, causing the ancient sword to undergo some strange changes. The originally purple ancient sword's color turned darker. At a glance, one would think it was black, but it was actually a dark purple color. There were also some demonic patterns on the scabbard, making it look even more mysterious and bizarre than before. Joan was dumbfounded as he watched from the side. He had never seen a guardian so humble. Not only did he sign a master-slave contract, but he didn't even dare possess it. All he could do was attach it to an ancient sword. Stored rations. Received. Demonic neonate returned to Zhou, Wen sighed with the ancient sword in her arms. "All right, I'll keep it for now." Zhou Wen comforted demonic neonate and entered the game to take a look. Indeed, the black cocooning game was gone. From the looks of it, all guardians were unique. It was unknown what the 7 white jade hoops on the ground were for, but Zhou stored them in the chaos space. After leaving White Cloud Mountain, Zhou rode a chi and headed for school as he grinded game dungeons. It just so happened that the Golden Battle God Halberd was about to respawn. Zhou wanted to see how much demonic neonate strength had increased after having a guardian like Grim Demon. The strength of a guardian had always been a mystery to Zhou. Some guardians were extremely strong, like the one in Ant City, as well as Guardian Zongxian. They all had very powerful abilities. However, the 6-winged seraphim he had encountered previously seemed very weak in John's body. However, after the 6-winged seraphim left John's body, it seemed much stronger. Zhou guessed that after guardians fused with humans, the amount of energy they could unleash depended on whether the person using them was strong enough. After entering the Metalwork Temple, the Golden Battle God Halberd had just respawned. Upon seeing Zhou, Wen, and demonic neonate, The tip of the trident immediately lit up. If it were in the past, demonic neonate wouldn't have dared to face the trident's golden divine light head-on due to its low level. All it could do was hide in the shadows and launch sneak attacks. But this time, the ancient sword in demonic neonate's arms broke out of its scabbard. With a surging ink-purple demonic aura, it actually blocked the golden divine beam. Gujian's body appeared above the golden battle god halberd as though he had teleported and sliced it into two. Although demonic neonate's strength hadn't increased, her demonic sword was much stronger than before. It could actually slice through the golden battle god halberd in one strike and win cleanly without any hesitation. Not bad. Not bad. Zhou was delighted. The demonic sword's attack power had greatly increased, and it had demonic aura effects. It would make it much easier for him to kill mythical creatures in the future. After the demonic sword fuses with the Guardian, I'll have to slowly study how strong it is in the future. Zhou was in a good mood as he rushed back to school. Zhou was in a good mood, but Grim Demon wasn't in a good mood. He originally imagined that demonic neonate would sincerely sign a contract with him, so he would accept being a slave guardian. However, after hearing Zhou and demonic neonate's conversation, Grim Demon's heart turned cold. How was this making him a slave? It was basically treating him as a food reserve. Perhaps demonic neonate would eat him when she was unhappy. Grim Demon hated Zhou so much that his teeth itched. This was because he knew that demonic neonate definitely wouldn't have such complicated thoughts. It had to be Zhou. However, he had no other choice. All he could do was try his best to show himself and curry favor with demonic neonate, hoping to obtain a recognition and not eat him up. What made Grim Demon uneasy was that he realized that he would often appear in strange dimensional zones. He had no idea how he had entered them. What was even more terrifying was that after Grim Demon died in battle, he originally thought that he was doomed, but to his surprise, his consciousness recovered not long after. It was as though his death had never happened. What's going on? Grim Demon was alarmed and afraid. He was on tenterhooks all day. Zhou experimented many times and realized that Grim Demon's ability wasn't as powerful as he bragged. However, it also allowed the demonic sword to reach the level of a top mythical creature. In fact, Zhou didn't know that the ancient sword that Grim Demon had possessed wasn't strong. Furthermore, it was only a supplementary tool. As its owner, demonic neonate's level was too low. It limited Grim Demon's abilities. Grim Demon's strength wasn't just that. It was purely because he was restricted. After returning to the city, Zhou heard almost everyone discussing the ranking war on the streets. Most people were discussing which companion beast was strong and which was weak. Yesterday, which companion beast's ranking had risen again and which companion beast had been defeated. Zhou had never heard of many of the companion beasts they discussed. However, the most discussed topic was Primordial Sword Immortal. Zhou quickly learned that Primordial Sword Immortal remained at the top of the rankings. After experiencing a few challenges, none of the companion beasts could shake its position as the overlord. Zhou also had the intention to fight for first place. He wanted to retrieve the divine fruit for his companion beast to eat, but he wasn't in a hurry. There was still some time before the 3-month deadline. Zhou still wanted to wait a little longer to see if there were any truly powerful mythical companion beasts challenging Primordial Sword Immortal. He wanted to understand Primordial Sword Immortal's abilities before deciding which companion beast to send a fight for first place. When Zhou returned to school, he realized that it was especially lively. It was actually a farewell party. Another batch of students had graduated. Has time passed so quickly? Unknowingly, I've already been at Sunset College for a year. Zhou couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Now, the school didn't have long holidays like the winter and summer holidays in the past. And at most 10 days or so, new students would report in, and Zhou and company would be promoted to the second year. Zhou, I thought I wouldn't be able to see you before I left. I never expected you to rush back. Wei Gu walked over from somewhere and said to Zhou with a smile, Senior, didn't you stay in school? Zhou asked Wei Gu in puzzlement. Wei Gu smiled and said, The school has the intention of letting me stay, but I rejected it. Before I leave, I have a wish. I wonder if you can help me fulfill it? Chapter 605. What wish? If it's not too difficult, I can give it a try, Zhou said. It's not a difficult problem. I just want you to help me guess a riddle. Come on. Wei Ge turned around and led the way. Do we need to go to a special place to guess riddles? Zhou asked as he followed behind. I've lived for so long, but I've only come up with such a riddle. I still have to show some respect. Let's find a place with a more atmosphere and have a sense of ceremony, Wei Ge said with a smile. The two of them arrived at the school's old campus one after another. As today was the farewell day, although Sunset College didn't have a welcoming party, there was a farewell ceremony. The students were basically participating in the farewell party, so the old campus was empty. When they arrived at an empty space, Wei Ge stopped and turned to look at Zhou. All right, let's do it here. What's your riddle? Zhou stared at Wei Ge and asked. He naturally knew that Wei Ge's so-called riddle was definitely not a brain teaser. My riddle is actually very simple. Take a guess which one is real, which one is fake. As Wei Ge spoke, he raised his right hand and held a coin between his middle and index fingers. With a sudden flick, the coin flew at Zhou. The coin was as fast as a meteor, but this wasn't surprising. Such a speed was still too slow to Zhou. However, when the coin flew halfway, it split into two and turned into two coins that flew to Zhou's left and right. The two coins looked identical. It was impossible to tell which one was real and which one was fake. Even the ripples of the air being torn apart were identical. Zhou stood motionless and allowed the two coins to fly past him. This was because he couldn't tell which coin was real, so it was meaningless to attack. After the two coins flew over, they landed on the ground not far away. The coin on the left vanished, leaving only the coin on the right. Senior, you condensed a life soul and advanced to the epic stage? Zhou looked at Wei Ge in surprise. Wei Ge nodded and said, My life soul is called Hypocrisy Mask. You've already seen its ability, so please help me distinguish which one is the real me. Can you help me tear off that mask? With that said, Wei Ge's figure suddenly moved. He was clearly alone, but the moment he moved, he split into two, attacking Zhou from both sides. The speed and strength of the two figures, and even the sound of the wind, felt very real. It was impossible to tell which was Wei Ge's main body and which was an illusion. Zhou moved his feet and dodged Wei Ge's attack like a ghost. This was because he couldn't tell which was the real Wei Ge. However, this time, the two Wei Ge's didn't vanish. Instead, they split into four. The two Wei Ge's became four Wei Ge's as they attacked Zhou, one from different directions. Zhou dodged again. In the next strike, Wei Ge's figure had already split into 8. He attacked Zhou from all directions, sealing off all his escape routes. If it were anyone else, they would have no choice but to make a choice. However, Zhou's movement technique was just too powerful. He actually passed through the 8 Wei Ge's. Zhou is indeed Zhou. Take my final strike. Wei Ge's eyes burned as the 8 figures spoke at the same time. Sound waves spread out, making it impossible for anyone to tell where the real Wei Ge was. In the next instant, the 8 figures split again, turning into 16 figures that attacked Zhou again. They sealed off all the space and rifts in the sky and ground, preventing Zhou from dodging. This time, Zhou stood rooted to the ground because he had nowhere to go. Even with his movement technique, it was impossible for him to rush out of the seal. It was time to make a decision. Without looking at the 16 Wei Ge's, Zhou closed his eyes and stood there. The first figure's fist struck Zhou, but he didn't move. The figure dissipated, leaving behind only an illusion. The second, third, and fourth figures slammed into Zhou in different postures before vanishing one by one. The 15 figures vanished. When the last figure charged at Zhou, he finally opened his eyes and moved. However, he didn't look at the figure charging at him. Instead, he turned around. The last figure slammed into Zhou's back before vanishing. However, Opposite Zhou, another Wei Gu appeared. How did you discover me? Wei Gu asked Zhou. I didn't discover you. Your illusions are too real, so I can't tell the real from the fake, Zhou said. Then how do you know that the 16 illusions aren't me? Wei Gu frowned slightly. If Zhou couldn't tell the real from the fake, how could he know that the 16 illusions weren't his real body? Zhou smiled and said, Because I trust you, senior. What do you mean? Wei Gu was slightly taken aback as he asked Zhou. Because you're a person who likes to play chess. How can a person who likes to play chess treat himself as a chess piece? Zhou said seriously. Wei Gu looked at Zhou in a daze before laughing. He laughed so hard that he rocked back and forth, tears almost coming out of his eyes. I see. Life is like a game of chess. How can I, Wei Gu, transcend the game of chess? I've forgotten that if I can't hear the game, how can I affect the game of chess? Wei Gu retracted his smile and said solemnly to Zhou, I'm leaving. I'm going to the capital and starting from the smallest chess piece. If there's a day when I can stir up the game of chess, I hope I'll have the chance to ask you to guess my riddle again. Are you really not staying? Zhou asked. Wei Gu didn't answer. He turned around and left. As he walked, he said, Playing with others is endless joy. Playing with the heavens is an endless struggle. If I can beat the heavens by a stroke of luck, this life will be worth it. Zhou stood there motionless for a long time as he watched Wei Gu leave. As a chess piece in the game, I can't even control my own fate. Can I really break out of the game? Zhou didn't know the answer, so he couldn't help but feel abnormally vexed. Jiang Yin, Zhong Zia, Hui Haifeng, Wang Lu, Zhang Yuji, and Wei Gu were all astounding talents of their generation, but they still had no choice but to head for a future they didn't know about under the influence of fate. Sunset College's farewell party wasn't so much a party as it was a send-off for warriors before they went to the battlefield. After leaving the school gates, the students would face a battlefield where life and death were unpredictable. No one could protect them, and their lives were in the hands of a whim. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.